Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 883 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again. And for the first time ever, we have video evidence which appears to show NATO shooting down Russian drones over Ukrainian airspace, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and the once again continuing rising tensions and the escalations that are occurring between the Russian Federation and NATO over the past 24 hours as well. We have been able to get incredibly interesting and somewhat concerning news from all ends, as we were able to hear that Romanian ground forces may have ended up intercepting and shooting down a large number of Shahed 136 drones flown by Russia over the territory of Ukraine, and ended up shooting down some of them over Romania and also over Ukraine as well. A massive escalation as far as we have seen, as this is starting, if true, to change the way that NATO neutrality has been ensured throughout the entirety of the war, and finally showing a major change. At the exact same time, either by coincidence or by direct correlation, the Russians are setting up a wildly and insanely high amount of field hospitals throughout the area of Western Russia, and it appears that they may be preparing for a mass casualty event, possibly the opening of a larger and more industrial scale conventional war of a sort within the region. We'll of course get into that a little bit later on in the night. We were also able to hear from Moscow that they are once again proposing that draconian measures be brought forward to oppress the Russian public and to shut them down and continue on the war effort without a large amount of public pushback against the war, considering that morale is continuously seeming to either be leveled or slowly dropping. It seems as though the Russian government is already trying to get their boot down on the face of the Russian people before they can actually rise up and cause anything too severe. At the exact same time, we were able to hear that American forces within the area of the Al-Asaf airbase in the Middle East have once again come under attack today by Iranian-backed forces and Iranian-backed proxies within the region. We currently do not have any information about the severity of the attack or any possible U.S. casualties that may have been sustained during the course of that attack, but it does seem as though, once again, the situation is incredibly volatile in the Middle East, and we are once again seeing that U.S. forces are coming under fire as a result of those actions. Meanwhile, we were also able to hear that within China, it seems as though the Chinese Minister Wang Yi is trying to pursue a friendly or a closer ties with Ukraine, as we were able to hear some very interesting statements made by the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi just over the past 24 hours. At the exact same time, we were also able to hear breaking news from the United States of America that apparently an extra $2 billion has been unaccounted for in the Pentagon that should be sent forward to Ukraine, and we were also able to hear that, according to the United States government, Iran is actually funding and supporting protest efforts within the United States, once again showing that nations that are a part of the axis of evil are once again trying to extend their tendrils into the American public and sway the American citizenry against each other in violent form. We were also able to hear that near the area of El Paso inside of Texas, an FBI sting was conducted that ended up arresting the actual leader of the Sinaloa cartel in a major upset to the Mexican cartels and their operations to this present day. We have loads.
They finally got El Mayo. I can't believe it. They got El Mayo, the major shot caller for the cartel. That's crazy to see. I'd be curious to know how that happened.
Man, next thing you know, they're going to be getting El Mustard and El Ketchup too. But beyond that, we were we were able to hear a lot of breaking news, but we're of course going to be getting into the most major and breaking news that we have tonight, which happened on the Romanian border. Now, I would want to say this before we get into this. Matthew and me had a little bit of a discussion about when these videos were supposedly based at, as far as the time frame. I was under the conception, or the idea, that these videos were actually from a mere few hours ago. When these videos surfaced, it was nighttime on the Danube River, and these videos are showing a nighttime environment during the setting that this video is occurring in. And for that reason, I was led to believe that there was a second attack on the Danube, and this is when the Romanians began to open fire. Enforcer Matt has told me that these videos, according to some sources, were from last night instead, but videos that just surfaced today and are showing a massive change in a NATO country, as far as Romania is concerned, stance against Russian drone attacks occurring near to the Romanian border. And we're going to be moving into this shocking footage right here. We were able to see, of course, once again, circling back, the Russian bombs hitting on the other side of the Danube inside of Ukraine here in this clip. We hear the drone flying in, and we can see it explode right there. From what we understand, this is the Romanian side of the Danube that this is being filmed at, but showing the port of Ismail as it is once again being ferociously attacked by Russian drone forces. But you see the fire, of course, raging out of control. These drone attacks, when they're able to breach air defense, are wildly devastating to the Ukrainian port infrastructure in this area around Renai and Ismail on the Danube River.
Kind of ironic considering that Ukraine is visiting China to ensure that they can get their grain exports out. And here's Russia, the ally of China, striking a grain port of Ukraine at the exact same time.
It is really ironic in a way, but one thing that is really bizarre is that over the course of these attacks that were occurring near Ismail, we got to see something that is very wild. Drones did land in Romania, and we do have picture proof of these drones having landed in fields around Romania, and we are able to confirm that it was once again within that little peninsula area just south and west of the city of Ismail inside of Ukraine. Not only that, we were also able to hear that apparently there is some considerable damage that was caused by Shahed drones very deep inside of Romania. Apparently this crash site that we're seeing right here was 12 kilometers inside of the Republic of Romania, meaning that this didn't actually hit the peninsula near Ismail. This went very deep into Romania, approximately 9 miles by the imperial measurement system, which is very far into Romania and most likely a deliberate action by the Russian drone pilot. And we were able to see that it was a pretty damaging hit. Of course, it hit in an unpopulated area, which is very fortunate, but still, if this had landed on top of a house or a building, the damage would have been unbelievable. And we see some of the burning remains surrounding the area. We see them once again surveying the damage, and that's the end of the clip, but still showing that these Shaheds are not just flying over Romania, like some people are saying, and that the damage isn't minor. These are fully loaded and fully charged Shahed 136 drones, just like the kind that attack Ukraine on a daily basis, and they pose as great a danger and as great a threat to the Republic of Romania as they do to the state of Ukraine over the course of this war. However, something has changed, at least according to video information that we were able to get, and I once again want to give a little bit of a caveat that we're going to explain after this video. But from what we are able to tell, for the first time ever since February 23rd of 2022, when the invasion of Ukraine began, NATO forces actually opened fire on Russian military equipment. We were able to see that supposedly Romanian Gepards stationed around the area of the Danube began to open fire on the Shahed 136s, not only flying over Romanian airspace, but also flying on the other side of the Danube inside of Ukraine, and began to systematically destroy as many of them as they possibly could. This is supposedly video footage from that night showing the Romanian ground forces and the Romanian ground air defense engaging the Russian drones and shooting some of them down. And so without further ado, here's the footage. We can see that some explosions already happened in Ismail at this point.
Acum mai vine una. Acum mai vine una. Acum mai vine una.
And we can see Ukrainian ground fire over there.
Se aude. Se aude.
Also notice that the guys speaking in the video are speaking Romanian. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, that is important. I didn't even bring that up, but that is very important.
Ăștia ai noștri?
And we can now see right here, this is the interesting thing. These shells that we were just watching right there didn't fly in from the Ukrainian side. They flew in from the Romanian side of the Danube River. And another thing that's very interesting, as many of y'all saw, the Ukrainians appear to be using heavy machine guns to try and combat these drones around Ismail on the other side of the river. Those shells are not proximity fused. Proximity fused shells explode in air at a specific distance. Usually that's calculated right before the shell takes flight. Excuse me, as hypothetically, the Gepard's anti-air radar, or really just air radar, is able to pick up this air target, and then they're able to set the fuse on these shells to where they'll explode pretty much at the exact distance where that air target is. These shells that were proximity exploding in the skies are most likely Gepard rounds that are being fired from the other side of the border in Romania.
Ăsta e Gepardul.
We can see once again more proximity fused shells being fired from the southern side of the Danube River, which is the Romanian controlled side. And I want you to notice, this is the Ukrainian-based ground fire. Notice how there isn't proximity-fused shells in the Ukrainian-based ground fire, because as usual, they're using heavy machine guns to try and combat the incoming drones. Romania, on the other hand, from what we believe, is using the Gepards, which have the proximity-fused shells. And that's the really big difference that we can see in this video.
Also, by the way, if you're curious what the guy just said in the middle of the video, I actually had someone who speaks Romanian translate the video for us. From what we're told, the guy speaking was speaking to another guy that was Romanian, and he said to the other guy, he said, "They are ours?" And the other guy responded, he said, "Yeah, they're ours." And then the guy asked, "Did it hit our Gepard?" And no response was heard. And then I think there was somebody saying, telling the soldier to go away. I don't know why he told him to go away, but that's what he was saying. So they were clearly talking about what was being shot up into the sky and whether or not it had hit the Romanian Gepard. So clearly a discussion going on about those fires going toward those drones. So, and also the guy speaking Romanian as well. So pretty convincing.
It is very convincing, and it does appear as though, according to the video information that we've been able to get from the ground, that Romania was actively involved in a defense of their airspace overnight, and were shooting down Russian drones not only over Romania, but also over Ukraine as well, from what we can tell. Something else that's very interesting to note, many people may not know this, is that Romania does have a decent fleet of Gepards that have been introduced into the Romanian ground forces that can be used in the realm of short-range air defense. These are, of course, a pretty standard self-propelled anti-aircraft gun that we have seen inside of Ukraine, inside of Germany, and inside of many countries that are a part of the former Warsaw Pact, as they tried to buy these as the Germans were beginning to retire them. Romania does have a decent amount of these. From what we understand, there is at least a couple of dozen of them at a bare minimum, and it is entirely possible that a Romanian Gepard, using its 35mm Oerlikon guns, was firing at the incoming drones, and what we were seeing were proximity fused shells being fired from the Romanian side, detonating in air, which is a very distinct and observable thing that we saw in the clip that is starting to heavily suggest that there was NATO involvement, NATO armed involvement in shooting at Russian incoming air targets, which is a fairly big change, and how things have been going so far. Another important thing that I'd like to point out is that the Romanian government has made a statement denying that there was any air defense involvement last night, and that they did not fire on or attempt to shoot down any incoming Russian drones. There is a decent amount of plausible deniability in this sort of scenario, as the Ukrainians also possess Gepard anti-aircraft guns, and those anti-aircraft guns could hypothetically have been used in the area to try and shoot down those incoming Russian Shahed drones. However, based on the video footage that we're getting, and knowing that the camera person was most likely somewhere right here on the Danube, looking across at Izmail Port, or right here, and we saw that ground-based anti-aircraft fire was coming off-screen from this area near Pardina, we are believing that this was Romanian-based anti-aircraft fire. This is an extremely big change in NATO posture, if true, as this is the first time that we may have been able to catch on film NATO armed forces conducting a really armed action against any element of the Russian Federation's armed forces, whether it be physical or drone. And this is a really big change, an incredibly big one if true. It could be groundbreaking if this ends up being admitted by the Romanian government that they were involved in an armed intervention of the Russian drone attacks that were occurring on the Danube. And a lot of people have
Also, real quick, Enforcer, before we move on to that poll, I saw one other rumor floating around today about this footage that we just saw. Some people were saying, how do we even know who's speaking in the video? It literally could be civilians, it could be anybody. They could be saying that to make it sound like the Romanians were shooting at the drone over Ukrainian territory. I'm not sure if you saw this, there was actually a second video that was posted by Visegrad24, and it's actually panning back to show you the soldiers standing on the line of the river, the water body right there. That's actually retweeted on our Twitter page as well if you want to show that one.
So let's see here. Let me go and try and find Visegrad 24. Yeah, but here we go. Yeah, those are Romanian soldiers right there. Let me show you all this clip that does show a little bit extra and does confirm that these guys are a part of the Romanian armed forces. We see the fire over there, and as they pan over, we can see that this guy clearly has some form of a PAS GT helmet on, a personal armor system for ground troops helmet, which the Romanians have introduced in the service. Maybe some sort of a ballistic vest, and we can also see what appears to be some form of a BDU or something along those lines in a Romanian form. And we can see
I
more
don't know,
of them
man.
down.
To me, I would say this is pretty convincing. Obviously, the Romanians are not making a statement as to whether or not they shot these down, or actually, I think they kind of did allude to the fact that they didn't shoot anything down, but clearly some drones have fallen on their territory. But I think this, to me, honestly, in my opinion, indicates that there was air defense activity by the Romanians, and that NATO may be wanting to tamp this down and not acknowledge the fact that they actually shot some of them down over Ukrainian airspace. That could be maybe some motivation for trying to keep the escalations low, but to me, this looks pretty damn convincing.
That may be so, and it is very, very telling that the Romanians are denying what happened, as it is adding a little bit of credibility that something may have happened, because if these were baseless rumors and claims, they most likely wouldn't have addressed it at all, even denying what had happened. But the fact that the Romanian government has come out on what generally is a fairly mundane claim, because, you know, the Russian propagandists are always saying that NATO is involved in the Ukraine war pretty much directly all day, every day. But the fact that they considered this claim to be serious enough that they needed to come out and refute it openly pretty much immediately after it started leads me to believe that there is probably some decent credibility to the idea that this is in fact some sort of an anti-air operation that was conducted by the Romanians overnight. And we have a pretty good reason to believe that there most likely would have been an anti-air operation to have been conducted overnight. Many months ago, around a half year ago, when these attacks were occurring by the Russian Federation quite regularly and were striking the areas of Romania right across the Danube, the Romanian government did announce that they were going to be deploying Romanian armed forces into the area. The United States also stated that they would be moving the 101st and 82nd Airborne into the area as well, and they were going to be creating an air defense perimeter around the Danube River inside of Romania. That air defense perimeter wasn't going to stretch over into Ukraine itself, where they would attempt to engage and destroy Russian air targets inside of Ukraine, but it was meant to create a barrier and shield in between Russian drone attacks on Izmail and Renai and the Romanian civilians that are living in places like Tulsi or Galati further to the west, or Braia, which is another city along the Danube. This is something that we would have to believe may have been a little bit of a happy trigger finger possibly by Romanian forces, as they could have seen that these drones appeared to be at a fairly high altitude, flying in a fairly consistent trajectory into Romanian airspace, and so instead of letting them fly into Romanian airspace, they gave the order to open fire and started to shoot down some of these drones while they were over Ukraine and some of them while they were inside of Romania. Once again, we do not have an official confirmation about this by the Romanian government, but we do have some very telling and very clear video footage that came from the area showing that Romanian armed forces were in the proximity and they were speaking about a Gepard of their own. And video footage does show, after geolocation, that those Gepards, those supposed Gepard rounds that were fired did appear to be fired from an origin point inside of Romania itself. Loads of people are weighing in on whether they believe the video footage is factual or not. A lot of people are talking about whether their eyes deceived them, or was that really a Romanian defensive effort to shoot down these drones before they can make it into their own country. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts, and it looks like a lot of people have some very interesting comments. It looks like very few people are completely doubting this. But Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking about this as well? This is a very big event if true.
So on the topic of whether or not the footage is actually correct, an actual real piece of news about Romania potentially shooting down several Russian drones over Ukrainian airspace, it looks like 56% of the audience said, "I believe the reports and footage," while 30% said, "I await official confirmation," and 4% said, "I don't believe this at all." So for me personally, I'm actually with the 56%. I've looked at all the footage that's come out today, as well as translations of the language in the video, and to me, it appears to be authentic. And we're pretty good at sourcing out what is real and what's not. And I don't want to hedge all of our bets on it. There is a possibility it could be maybe misinterpreted or maybe misunderstood. But to me, I think it's pretty credible, and I believe the footage and also the reports as well, that this is legitimate. It looks like Romania probably took some shots at Russian drones and took down several of them. not over their own airspace, but over Ukrainian airspace, right over the border of Romania. So to me, it looks pretty legit. And also keep in mind as well, this is not the first time this has happened. It has happened before, and typically the NATO response is trying to de-escalate, tamp it down, and try to bury the story so that way it doesn't turn into a international incident and also a much larger story that might cause some escalation. I think that's probably what we're seeing right here again, is Romania and also NATO working together to try to bury the story so that way it doesn't get out and cause an international incident. But that's just me. So Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I do believe the footage. Of course, we use video and picture evidence as a maxim on this channel to be able to dictate if something is true or not true, because if you can physically see that something did happen, it is most likely entirely a thing that happened. Of course, some people out there believe that world governments spend their time in some kind of a Chinese sweatshop having some people go through After Effects or something and make up everything in the world, but usually video footage is very accurate and does paint a much better picture of what's going on than really any talking heads could try and get out. And so going off of that, considering that this video footage did show, one, Romanian soldiers standing along the banks of the Danube, and two, it showed Gepard rounds that were proxy fused and exploding in the skies above the Danube, originating from a firing position in the Romanian side of the Danube. I would have to believe that the video footage is correct and that the Romanians were attempting and did shoot down some Shahed 136 drones overnight. This will be, going off of that assumption, the first time that NATO forces have ever engaged the Russian Federation in open armed combat of any sort. Of course, when I say open armed combat, it's not like, you know, infantry fighting infantry or a full-on war, but this is the first time that we've ever seen any force involved in NATO fire shots at anything that is a part of the Russian Federation's military. This is the first time ever, if this information is true. And also, let's see here, I'm trying to see what some people are saying in the chat. Someone said, oh, hello, After Effects. Yeah, I know, right? Like, it's hard to use After Effects. And so someone actually said, what will this mean for NATO? That's actually a really good question. What will it mean for NATO? And from what we understand, considering that they are denying any involvement, both the Romanian government and NATO at large are denying any involvement, this isn't really going to be changing all too much unless if the Russian government tries to push home the idea that they did shoot down their drones and try and form a major diplomatic incident and maybe a major incident overall over this issue. So for now, we believe that there's probably going to be no major impact at the moment, but I say that while we're hearing some very concerning things out of the Russian Federation, just across and in the other side of Europe, in Eastern Europe. We were able to hear, and this is something that I'm going to have to make sure I read exactly to get this information out to y'all. The Russian Ministry of Defense has ordered a large deployment of military hospitals, clinics, and trauma centers to certain cities across the country, including the capital of Moscow, which will operate directly under the Defense Ministry. This, I want to make sure it's very clear, is the first time that we have ever heard that the Russian Ministry of Defense has stated that an incredibly large deployment of military hospitals, clinics, and trauma centers have been made in certain cities across the country. And from what we understand, most of these cities are within the western area of the Russian Federation facing NATO. This is something that I have to say is very concerning on its face, and I'll tell y'all why. Many of y'all may remember that after the October 6th massacre conducted by Hamas inside of Israel, the Israelis began to prepare for a ground offensive into the Gaza Strip to try and deal once and for all with the Hamas forces that ended up conducting that massacre. During the preparations, Benjamin Netanyahu approved the creation and the construction of massive amounts of military hospitals, trauma centers, and clinics to prepare for the possible mass casualties that the Israeli Defense Forces would take in the event of invading Gaza. This is something that is very important to point out, is that these sorts of preparations, and we can go off of recent history just from last year as an example, are showing that this is an attempt to start to prepare for a possible large full-scale conflict, one where it would be believed that even higher casualties will be taken than had been in the past. Of course, this is something else to note. If the Russian Federation has already had enough medical infrastructure so far in the war, over 2 years, to deal with the massive amounts of casualties and deaths that they're taking out of the Ukraine war, what in the world would these military hospitals, clinics, and trauma centers be set up for? Who in the world would they be preparing to go to war with where they would need this large amount of military hospitals, trauma centers, and clinics that haven't already been deployed and used before in the war in Ukraine. And this is starting to lead some to believe that this may be the preparations for a larger war that may be coming in the future, somewhere within the area of Eastern Europe, as most of these field hospitals, from what we understand, are being deployed and set up within that region. And so a lot of people have been weighing in on this a little bit, and it's talking about what the world is happening because of this, or is this because of any larger actions that the Russians are wishing to take against NATO as a whole? And there are a load of questions about that, and a lot of people are wondering whether NATO should speak out or not at this point, considering that it looks like the Russians are already preparing for some kind of a major conflict of a sort, on whether NATO should speak out about the incident on the Romanian border and admit that they did shoot down those drones, or maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should hold back that information and let the Russians think the Ukrainian air defense successfully engaged some of those drones and shot them down. But Matthew, what are people thinking about the NATO lack of a statement for the large part with the situation in Romania? Do people believe that we should come out and speak about that and admit that Romania did that, even with it looking like the Russians are starting to prepare for some kind of a larger conventional war in the area? Or do they think that they should hold back and not say much of anything about it at all? And what are you thinking about it?
So the large majority of the audience, about 66% or so, said yes, NATO should speak out right now about the drones hitting a NATO country, which is Romania, regardless of not whether Romania was involved in shooting them down. We did see several drones and their remains fall on the territory of a NATO country, and so far, we have not heard a collective NATO statement as of right now. And 16% said no, NATO should ignore these issues entirely, while 12% said it really honestly doesn't matter. And I would say it 100% matters. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm shocked that NATO has not made a statement yet. At least the typical kind of like lame brain, like strong worded statement. We have not even heard that yet. So to me, that is a sort of a weak approach to take, considering that Romania, who is a NATO member and pays toward the 2% guideline, just got hit by Russian drones. Regardless of whether or not it was intentional or unintentional, it did happen. And right now, NATO has not said a word about it. So that is shocking. I'm definitely with the 66%. There should have been a statement, and there needs to be one immediately. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I am entirely a fan of the idea of NATO coming out and saying that Romania did in fact engage those drones and shoot them down if that was true. I believe that at this point, especially with the Russians looking like they're possibly preparing for a larger conventional war, and there's only one other group in Western Europe that they could be attempting to fight, which is the West, I would have to say that, in my opinion, there should be action taken to make an announcement that NATO is, in fact, engaging and destroying Russian drones near the area of the Danube, even inside of Ukraine, and that should be made as a general message, a warning of a sort to the Russian Federation that NATO is not as scared as the Russians want to make NATO out to be, and NATO isn't as cold-footed as it's tried to put itself forward in the past with. If the sovereignty or the safety of a NATO country and its citizenry are affected by Russian aggressive actions, NATO will take all available measures possible to defend its citizenry, the nations that make up NATO, and its interests as a whole, not only within the areas around the world in the North Atlantic, but specifically within Western Europe as well. I would say that a statement like that would be incredibly good at this time, as it would start to show NATO as the more I guess you could say gung-ho group of the two, because the Russians only talk. If we actually shot down drones over the Danube, that is a massive move forward by both sides. And this is, well, really by just us on the one side. And it would make the Russians think if they would shoot down our drones that quickly in their own defense, they will quickly wipe away any ground armies in Eastern Europe as well. And that probably would be a quick time coming if they were to try and start a conventional war with NATO. So in my opinion, I would have to say that NATO should speak out about this promptly and immediately and try and lay out an idea, or at least a mental image for the Russians that NATO means business when it comes to protecting their security interests. And so with that,
I just don't know really why any country, NATO, Romania, or otherwise, would want to try to hide the fact that they defended their own airspace. That's their sovereign airspace. And even though, once again, regardless of whether or not Romania struck the drones over Ukrainian territory or over Romanian airspace, It's irrelevant. If the drone was coming toward Romania, and clearly the trajectory was on course for a populated area inside of Romania, since when is that something not to be spoken about? That should be something that NATO's saying, we defended our airspace, this is what we did, we shot them down over Ukraine, and we'll do it again if this is done once more by Russia. That's something, in my opinion, to be proud of. We're protecting our airspace, and we're not scared of Russia. But once again, to me, I think the footage is real. I think we just saw Romania shoot down a Russian Shahed drone over Ukraine, and that's the first time ever in the war. And here we see NATO trying to tamp it down and trying to bury the story to where it looks like, oh, don't worry, Russia, we're not going to make this a big incident. Don't worry about it at all. It's like, we need to send the message to Russia that we're not backing down. And in fact, if you mess with us anymore, it's going to be trouble. That's how you deter countries. But what we're doing right now is giving Russia the green light to hit it again. And it's happened before, so it's probably going to happen a third time.
I would agree with that completely. And also, on top of that, while we're starting to hear that NATO may have possibly taken aggressive actions against the Russian Federation near the Romanian border, we were also able to hear some very concerning things out of the Middle East today as far as how Iranian-backed groups are starting to conduct hostile actions against U.S.-backed forces in the area or the United States forces itself. We have been able to hear that there have been unconfirmed reports of explosions inside the area of eastern Syria near the Conoco gas fields. And this is once again showing that Iranian-backed groups are beginning to attack not only Israeli forces in the area, but also U.S. forces as well. We have also been able to see that apparently, just a few hours ago, there have been more attacks on the Al-Asaf airbase within the region of western Iraq. According to the information that we have, 4 rockets were launched at the Ain al-Assad airbase in Iraq, where U.S.-led coalition forces are stationed. 2 reportedly struck inside the base, and 2 reportedly struck near the perimeter. We have not been able to get any reports of injuries or casualties at this moment. The United States Department of Defense usually waits around 48 hours to disclose any reports of casualties or of any sort, whether they be fatal or non-fatal, and so we will most likely not have any additional information about the severity of this attack until a little while later. And this is once again making it seem as though that this isn't really a matter in between Iran and Israel. It is quite clearly an anti-Western affair. The Iranians really have absolutely no reason to deal with the U.S. forces that are inside of Iraq. Let me make this very clear as far as the diplomatic lay of the land in this area. Right now, Lebanon is largely controlled by Hezbollah, at least within the southern region, and they also have an incredibly large sway on the Lebanese government. Inside of Syria, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps forces help and support the Assad regime, trying to help them to beat the Syrian Democratic Forces that are backed and supported by the United States within the eastern part of the country. Inside of Israel, Hamas continues to conduct operations against Israel, a largely pro-Western country that the United States has openly supported as far as their security interests in the past. The United States also has a decent military presence either around Jordan or inside of Jordan. And currently, there are absolutely no Iranian-backed groups that are operating inside of Jordan, and Jordan is considered a very pro-Western country, and the United States has had a very good relationship with Jordan going forward. Same with Iraq. Iraq has a fairly decent U.S. presence within the area and multiple air bases within the country. And so far, while there are Kurdish forces that continue to conduct small skirmishes against the Iraqi government in the north, and we've also seen that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has conducted actions in this area, Iraq officially, on a governmental level, is pro-Western. And therefore, we can see that the United States forces are still there. But nevertheless, it does not matter whether these U.S. forces are in the way of Iran trying to fight Israel or not. These U.S. forces that are at the Al-Asad airbase are not in any way, shape, or form in the way of Iran trying to mess with Israel. Israel is surrounded by Hezbollah forces and also Hamas forces. The Iranians could continue to support those groups largely without any interference by the United States, except for light interference at that, and completely avoid any kind of an armed confrontation with U.S. forces in this area. And this is once again showing, because of the attack on Al-Asad airbase by pro-Iranian groups, that they are trying to clearly make this an anti-Western front. This is not a conflict in between who owns the land in Israel. This is a conflict of ideology in between an evil nation like Iran and fairly forward-thinking and decent nations that are self-determining here in the West. It is not a question of who owns the land in Israel. It is more so a question of who is trying to own the sway and flow of people around the world. And the Iranians are making it quite clear that they will go to any lengths and attack anyone from the Western world if they are within their grasp and reach. And sadly enough, we have also been able to hear news today that apparently they are trying to sway the American public as well through very underhanded and illicit means to try and sway them to their side. We were able to hear this statement today from a United States government official called John Kirby. And I want you all to really quickly hear this statement because it's a very important one, and it's one that I've been saying a lot about the Chinese and the Russians, and today the United States government actually admitted the very thing I've been saying for almost a year and a half at this point about Iran. And so here's the clip.
We've said ourselves, the Director of National Intelligence came out publicly and said that we do know that Iran has been funding and encouraging some of the protest activity here in the United States. Some of it. We do not believe that all the protest activity out there on a daily basis is being fully funded by Iran. There's a lot of organic concern out there in the American people about what's going on in the Middle East, and most of these protests are formed and fashioned in that regard.
But one thing
I gotta say, I'm not really surprised by that whatsoever. Like, I've also had that suspicion myself, a very strong suspicion. It's kind of like the unspoken thing. Like, everybody knows China supports Russia, but there hasn't been a ton of like concrete evidence to really back that up until recently. The same thing here with the Middle East and, for example, Iran sponsoring these groups here, which are not legitimate protesters. Once again, I support everybody's right to go out and protest whatever you want. It's a free country. We live in America. Do what you want. But the difference is when you go out and start writing death to America, we want to destroy the entire country. That's a whole nother thing. Those people don't sound like Americans to me. Those people sound like people that are trying to tear us down, that are probably funded by a country like Iran that hates America. So that's just not a protest in my opinion.
And one thing I want to make very clear really quickly is that, of course, a U.S. government official has to give a very specialized form of padded wording. As you all saw, he said, Iran is funding and backing certain groups that are spearheading these protests inside of the United States in support of Palestine and also in support largely of Iranian interests, but that's not all. And then he went on to pad it by saying that's not all of them. Some of them are probably quite genuine in their nature. But the thing is here, and this is the important thing that I want to lay out, one cannot suppress free speech, and whether a foreign nation is funding certain groups to try and spurn Americans into acts of pretty much reactionism, it is still largely within the realm of free speech. But one thing that I think is very important and very crucial for citizens of Western nations, and especially American citizens, to understand is that most voices that are very reactionary on any side of the coin are usually very disingenuous and are being funded by foreign countries somewhere around the world to try and create further hostilities, further tension, and further degradation of the United States from within. The United States is such a large economic and military powerhouse that really no nation in the world, either now or in the near future, will ever be able to beat us either economically or militarily in an outright conflict. For that reason, and also due to the lessons of the Cold War and how the United States was able to eventually combat and wipe out the Soviet Union for the large part, many nations around the world, including China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, have all realized that it's better to try and degrade the United States from within and pit different groups against each other, not to try and further their own objectives, but to try and further the weakening of the United States public cohesiveness, the nation's esprit de corps of a sort, and to try and make it a lot easier for the United States to erode itself from the inside out. And the statement made today by that government official is once again backing up my idea that I've been telling you to y'all for nearly a year and a half at this point, that bad actors around the world are constantly encouraging and spurring further conflict in between different ideological groups in the United States and trying to make the situation almost absolutely infeasible to move forward with. Many of y'all can see that in your daily lives. We have a rule on this channel that we do not talk politics. And one of the reasons why is because it's incredibly divisive and there's no reason to be divisive on that level. But another reason why is because the modern political atmosphere is so charged and it's so violent, and of course many great examples have been seen recently because of that, that it's impossible to delve into it without dealing with the incredibly charged and radicalized people in every single side that exist within the American political field in this modern day and age. And the only reason that these heavily charged and heavily radicalized and very violent people exist in the modern American political scene is because of bad actors like Iran, the Russian Federation, and the People's Republic of China constantly trying to encourage them to push the ball a little bit further, push that thing a little bit on down the court. It's not just good enough to go out and speak your mind on a topic, you need to go out and riot about it. And then another side goes, hey, look at those people over there that are rioting. Y'all don't know that they're funded by the Chinese. We do, but they're outrageous. Y'all ought to go out and riot against them, or maybe beat a couple of them to death and see how that goes. And that kind of violence and escalation here in America amongst the citizenry is all being spurned on by these foreign countries around the world. And I think that's something that a lot of people should start to grasp and pick up on and learn about quickly, is that the major enemies of the United States are not your next door neighbors who have a different opinion than you. They are these foreign countries around the world like Russia, China, and Iran, who are continuously trying to sway the American people's thinking into being much more violent and much more angry against their very own citizenry, who are as well intentioned and as honest as they are, but maybe have a difference in opinion of a sort. That is something that I have to say is a very concerning thing to hear the United States admitted that today, and also to see that the Department of Justice seized 1,000 Russian bot accounts just about a week ago. We are seeing that there is a lot of foreign interference in the way that American citizens are speaking about things around the world, and it is once again leading us to have an idea that many foreign countries are once again trying to erode the United States from the inside out, pitting citizens against each other. But nevertheless, a lot of people have been throwing in their own 2 cents on this and talking about whether, how the United States should try and deal with possible Iranian-funded protesters and rioters. Some are saying that they should arrest the protest organizers. Others are saying that an anti-Iran propaganda campaign should begin by the United States government. Others are saying that they should deploy forces to stop some of the riots, and others are a little bit unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so the poll right here, I just want to make this clear right off the bat. While these options here are the options on the question of the poll, this does not reflect our view, so don't conflate what the poll says here with what we're thinking. We'll tell you that in just a minute. But it looks like 49% said arrest the Iran protest organizers, while 21% said start an anti-Iran propaganda campaign on the part of the U.S. government, and 20% said deploy forces to stop the riots. Now, here's the catch, though. I am not for whatsoever inhibiting anyone's right to protest. That is an inherently American right, and we should not interfere with that. However, there is a law in America which prevents foreign agents from coming in and being funded by foreign governments to do things just like this. So if the Iran protest organizers are indeed proven to be receiving money from the Iranian government, and they're organizing these protests for the purpose of disrupting the normal flow of life in America, then I would say that's a good reason to bring charges for that, because that's acting as a foreign agent, and that is not legal in the United States. And also, that's basically interference by a foreign government in America's normal daily dealings. So I'm with the 49%, but only with the proper evidence to actually charge them with the crime, and anything less than that, they simply can't do it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that me personally, I don't think that arresting any protest organizers should be done unless if it has turned into a riot and is declared as an unlawful assembly. Generally, and of course, I want to make this very clear because this is my general rule across the board. I'm perfectly fine with people going out and protesting whatever they want. For some reason, a lot of people think that does something. Really, to me, it just looks like a social hangout where a whole bunch of people just kind of agree on one thing, but they don't really get anything done and they just kind of walk around all day. That's generally how I view protests, unless if they're incredibly large and in the hundreds of thousands or millions in a specific area. But beyond that, protests to me are an American right, and you can go out and protest whatever you want, of course, as long as you're able to make sure that you have the ability to protest and it remains within the confines of the law. However, whenever any protest, and I mean this is an across-the-board statement, some will say that this is only one side or the other. I mean this for all sides. I want to make that very clear. Once a protest starts to become an unlawful assembly or a riot, I believe that anyone and everyone who the police believe to be really a ringleader of the chaos that is starting to arise in this riot should be arrested, as they are starting to create a very dangerous situation for the remainder of the public that are not involved in the protest or the now riot or unlawful assembly. That is something that I'll be very clear with. I'm all for people going out and speaking their mind, whether it be just on a public sidewalk or in a massive protest, but once it starts to become violent, that's where the line is drawn. Because that could get very dangerous and very nasty really quickly, not just for the protesters and the police getting hurt, but random passerbys and bystanders could also get hurt as well. That's a very dangerous situation, and while we're all for free speech, we're not for people getting brained in the middle of trying to quote-unquote exercise free speech. However, at the same time, I do not like the idea of foreign nations continuing to try and interfere and further spurn division here in the United States amongst well-minded citizenry who only wish to see the improvement of their nation or what they believe is the best action in the United States to be brought forward. And I'll say this, every single side has a different direction of going about that here in the United States. But one thing I will say is that when you talk to any of those people that are very political, every single one of them believes that their decision, their ideas are what's best for the nation. One can agree or disagree with them, and one can disagree with them so much that they think that it's actually to the detriment of the nation. But nevertheless, many people who are involved in the political process on every side of the United States are fairly genuine people and are trying to actually do things that they believe would be in the betterment of the nation. That is something very important to remember, is that a lot of these people have well intentions, regardless their policy. But beyond that, when it starts to be spurned forward by a foreign government, that's when things get a little bit questionable to me. I would actually be a big fan of either the United States trying to encourage an anti-Iranian propaganda campaign in the public or something along those lines to try and defeat them ideologically, instead of trying to defeat them and maybe possibly turn some of them into martyrs by arresting them and possibly giving them sentences in jail or in prison because of their actions or involvements. Because when you arrest people like that, it seems good at the time, but usually they end up becoming something of a living martyr because of that. And one great example of that is Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler practically became a martyr to the German public after he was arrested by the Weimar Republic after the beer hall putsch in Munich. That is really when he started to take off in popularity in Germany while he was in prison. And once he got out, he published Mein Kampf, which of course was this giant book that, well, not really giant, it was actually a little bit small, but it was a fairly smaller book that he had written while in prison, speaking about his ideology. And because he went to prison over his beliefs, the German public started to really believe in this guy because he was willing to go the extra mile to try and further his ideals. So you really don't want to do that with a lot of these people, because then they could end up looking like they have a point. So generally, I would have a little bit of a leniency on trying to arrest people, but I would want to start a propaganda campaign to combat what the Iranians are trying to push in America. And once again, keep people in mind that this is a foreign nation trying to sway you to betray your own nation and your own citizenry, and to keep that in mind when going forward with that kind of thinking. But with that,
also, real quick, Enforcer, I've seen people in the live chat, they've been mentioning the burning of American flags. And I want to say right up front, that sickens me to the soul to see that, because not only is it disrespectful to every American out there, it's especially disrespectful to the veterans who fought and died for the flag and the country as well. Super disrespectful. But sadly, that is a constitutionally protected activity. They have the right to do that, even though it is quite disrespectful. It's nasty to see, really. But it is protected. The Supreme Court's held that. So can't really stop that. Nobody's getting arrested over it, but it's definitely not a good thing. I can tell you that.
yeah, it's not a good thing, but the Supreme Court did deem, I believe this was back in the 70s, if I'm correct, Matthew, that burning the American flag is an extension of free speech. I personally find it to be very sickening, and especially for American citizens to do it, I find it to be very disheartening that they would hate their own country enough to burn the flag, which is the symbol of the entire republic, including themselves. But nevertheless, they do have the right to do it, but that doesn't mean I really like it all too much. But, you know, we have to respect that they have a constitutional right to free speech and doing something like that, although it's very disrespectful, at least in my opinion. Because you see, I wouldn't go around and burn American flags, and if I was British, I wouldn't be burning British flags, or hell, even if I was Chinese, I wouldn't be going around burning Chinese flags, probably because you get a bullet in the back of the head for doing that in China. But you know, the point still stands. If I'm from a country and I was born and raised there, I'm not really going to be burning a flag, at least in my own personal opinion, because to me, that's very disrespectful, not only to myself, a citizen of that nation, but all of the other citizens, whether they like my opinions or not. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Also, someone said it's an action, not speech. Well, yeah, but writing, yeah, right, yeah, it's freedom of expression, but it's kind of, you know, an umbrella, freedom of speech sort of thing, if you want to call it that. But you know, everything that falls within like a freedom of speech, or as Matthew is saying, a freedom of expression, it doesn't mean that it's no longer protected. Because when we do something on the internet, like right now running the show, while we are talking, I had to put together the show and do some work to get on this channel to exercise my freedom of speech in being pro-Western and very pro-American. And that is something that is more of an act, really, when you think about it, than really speech, because it took a lot of effort to get to this point where I could actually talk on air tonight. But nevertheless, it is still considered a freedom of expression or freedom of speech for the large part. And so while some people may or may not like that, it is unfortunate. Well, not really unfortunate. It's just kind of a little bit of a bittersweet reality of the United States and its ideas of the freedom of speech in some senses, that people can burn flags and just do that. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Someone said they also vandalize stuff. A lot of people vandalize stuff these days. I don't know what it is with that, and people acting like the coolest thing to do in any kind of a protest is to vandalize stuff. Like, everyone gets out these spray paint cans now, and they go and spray paint crap on everything. I cannot stand that. One, I don't really like graffiti that much, like especially crappily done graffiti. And two, why in the world do you have to go around vandalizing stuff just because you're in a protest? Like, don't you get the message across not being an obnoxious asshole and spray painting everything with a spray paint can? I mean, I feel like you get your point across better if you weren't an obnoxious asshole. That's my idea in a protest. But I'll be honest, from what I can tell, most protests have a decent amount of obnoxious assholes in them, really, no matter what kind of protest it is. Usually it's very self-centered people who feel like they're making a difference by walking around the street and saying something that go
That's
to
what
protest.
happens when a foreign government gets their hands on very uninformed and naive college-age kids and students, is they start doing things like this, because part of it's out of sheer ignorance. I'm going to be totally honest with you. There's a lot of ignorant people our age running around. There's a lot of them. And, you know, when a foreign government steps in and gives them an idea, like, hey, look, here's a cause that you can support, they're all like, oh, they're looking for a cause to support anyway. So they're like, oh, this is perfect. So then they go out there, start doing all this stupid stuff, defacing monuments, burning flags, and all kinds of stuff. Totally for any disregard whatsoever for any history of the country, what we fought for, what we stand for, or anything. They just want to burn the whole thing. It makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But those are some of the few people I would say are actually disingenuous people who try and get involved in the political sphere, or those that are trying to work to the detriment of the nation for some reason. And I don't know what it is with people like that, because I guess they watched the movie Avatar when it came out, you know, Matthew, remember, like the guy who was in the wheelchair ended up betraying all of his people and joined the Avatar folks just because he thought they were kind of neat. You know, it's like,
oh yeah,
it's like, isn't that kind of weird? You know, like that those ideas, I guess, pick up with people, and they're like, you know what, I'm gonna sink the whole ship and I'm gonna drown with everyone just because. It's like, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because it's like if you, like, one thing to me, it's like, if you hate your own country and you want it destroyed, it's like, you know, you're going to be destroyed with it, right? Like, you know, no one's going to remember you, like, on the other side. Like, if you're pro-Iran and you want to see America dead, so you're going to end up dead too. And guess what? No one in Iran is going to consider you a hero. They're going to consider you a schmuck. That's what they're really going to consider you. And so I don't know why people do that, because I would rather root for my team, the team I know would back me up, at least in some form, by the end of the day, instead of a group of people who hate me and would like to see me dead along with everyone else. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are going to be moving on into a couple of questions, actually, because some of y'all have thrown in some really interesting questions tonight. And Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so moving into our first Super Chat segment of the night, we have a very generous donation from Charles Hazlitt, who put in a $50 support. And a huge shout out to you, Charles, for that support, as always. He says, thank you for bringing the news you do, and take one from the chat.
And I gotta say, Thank you so much once again for support, Charles Hazlitt, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you so much for enjoying the news that we do every single night. We try to make this as well thought out and as well presented a news segment as we can every single night. And I got to say that I thank every single one of y'all for helping this channel to keep on running, especially you, Charles Hazlitt, and really enjoying this channel so that way we can keep making this possible each and every single day. If it wasn't for folks like you, Charles, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again, and I hope I was able to do justice to your super chat. And so with that, we will make sure to take one from the chat. And what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and this question from the chat is going to go to Purple Gerbil, who says, are there U.S. troops in Romania, and do you think that Russia is trying to send the USA a message with this recent attack?
From what we understand, there are American forces in Romania. We have the 82nd Airborne and the 101st Airborne inside of Romania currently. That's actually a very interesting force. It is a rapid deployment force of a sort, because the 82nd Airborne is largely a light infantry force is the best way to explain it. Of course, they're one of the few units in the U.S. military anymore that are jump trained. I think they're actually one of the last groups, one of the last units in the U.S. Army that's still jump trained, where they can parachute out of the back of an aircraft. The 101st Airborne is an airborne assault division, I believe, if I'm correct. And it is entirely a light infantry force. But the fact behind the two is that while they're light in terms of firepower, they are very fast in the ability to move because they're not burdened down by heavier tanks that are very slow to transport or anything else along that matter. The entire division can deploy quite rapidly into a forward location. And that's why we have them in Romania, is it's supposed to send a sign to the Russians that if things went really bad, American forces would be able to arrive rapidly. We have pretty much the fastest moving units in the U.S. Army, the 82nd and the 101st, currently inside of the area of eastern and southern Romania. But going off of that, it may be the fact that the Russians are trying to send a message to the Americans, well, to the United States, by conducting these attacks in the area, but I really think it's more so just a flagrant violation of NATO sovereignty as a whole, and it's a fairly good excuse to be able to do that over and over and over, and really create minor humiliations each time. Because every single time it happens, the Russians go, "Hey, well, we were trying to hit Izmail. What are you going to do about it?" And no one does anything about it. So they get to blow up a bomb on NATO territory. It ends up looking fairly embarrassing. NATO does nothing about it, and Russia gets away with it each and every time. And so I don't really think it's more so of a message against the United States. I think it's just a general message sent by the Russians to everyone in NATO is, we don't care about your sovereignty. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. And I think that's largely what they're going for with this kind of stuff. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one. And I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Charles Hazlitt. But also, Matty, I just saw someone in the chat say, Bruce said, "Are you going to get to Ukraine? Cheers." I thought they said...
It's coming up. It's coming up. No worries.
Just hold up. We go through a question segment. And also, really quickly, I was wanting to say this because I thought it said something else. I thought they were going to say, what do you getting Ukrainian cheers? You know, like I was talking about, you know, no one in Iran's going to applaud you if you want to destroy America and you're an American. No one's even going to remember you. And that was, I misread that, and it made me think of a good answer to that about supporting Ukraine. And this is always the caveat you see here with this channel, is that this channel is pro-Ukrainian, but it's primarily pro-Ukrainian because we're pro-Western. And really pro-American as a result of that, because we're U.S. citizens, and for us, and really largely the entire Western world, the United States is the epicenter of the Western sphere. At the end of it, if you got down to the real reason I support Ukraine, I don't really support Ukraine as the main priority because I like Ukraine, and I think they're kind of neat. I really support them because I see a lot of American interests and a lot of opportunities for the United States and the Western world that we lead as a whole for all of us to get involved in. And that's why I end up supporting Ukraine, is because inherently it is within America's interest to do so. I'm not really here at the end of the day to get applause and cheer from the Ukrainians because I'm supporting their country. I'm really here to be able to secure what America needs. And if I get applause and cheer from American citizens, that's considered a good thing by me. And if I don't, that's fine. I still was out here trying to secure what I believe to be key American interests around the world. So that's kind of how that works. I was thinking that was a good question if that was a question like that. So I hope I addressed that well with how we work things on this channel. Because if we're going to get cheers from anyone, it would probably be Americans, or a very small amount of them, and so I'm going to be working for them. And of course, I'm an American citizen as well. But then at the end, I want to make sure to clear this up as well, because half of our viewers are not American. They're from the rest of the Western sphere. America's actions that are beneficial and positive for us are positive for the sphere as a whole, because usually the benefits that come to America come to everyone as a large lump sum. So while I'm saying it's inherently an American interest to support Ukraine, it's inherently a Western interest to support Ukraine as well, because there's a lot that the European Union can get out of it, both militarily, economically, strategically, and along every other line as well. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. With that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here goes to Purple Gerbil, who's a live chat. We just got a moment ago, but thank you very much, Purple Gerbil, for the $20 support as well. And they said, smash that like, and indeed, smash the like button, by the way. And thanks for all the diligent work, and long live the LSA, and take one from the chat.
And I thank you so much for the support, Purple Gerbil, and enjoying this channel and helping it to keep on running. I also think you were the first super chat tonight, and I got to thank you so much for that support, and really enjoying the channel enough to help it to keep rolling. You help the show run every single night, Purple Gerbil, and I gotta say that it is truly incredible. 45,000 people, actually 46,000 people, just updated, have watched the stream since it started an hour and 10 minutes ago, and every single one of them gets to watch this channel every single night, ad-free and sponsor-free. They click right on the stream, and there are no sponsors, and there are no ads. They go straight to being able to listen to the news, and we are able to run this ad-free, sponsor-free show thanks to folks like you, Purple Gerbil, who decide, the very few of y'all who decide that this channel is actually worthwhile to support. Y'all make it possible for tens of thousands of people every single night, really hundreds of thousands of people every single day. And I've got to give y'all a huge thanks. I got to give you a huge thanks, Purple Gerbil, for being one of those few people who stepped up and really broke kind of the model of this channel and decided to support it, so that way we can make sure that the ad-free, sponsor-free, you don't have to worry about a single thing, you just get to sit down and listen to the news kind of a model of a channel continues to get to run in the sphere. It is incredibly appreciative. I thank you massively for that support, Purple Gerbil, and I thank you for enjoying the work we do. And of course, long live the Least Spring Army, and the Least Spring Army will never die. And Matthew, what do we got from the live chat?
All right, so this live chat question is going to go to, let's see here, I just saw it right here. It was from Mike Ross, and Mike asked the question, could Russia be setting up these field hospitals because maybe one of the nuclear power plants is on the verge of having a meltdown or potentially going to blow up?
That's an interesting question. I would say probably not, because those hospitals wouldn't be spread out amongst a wide area. They would most likely be set up within the area of southern Russia, because if you're talking about a nuclear power plant melting down, we know of one that might be close, which would be the Rostov nuclear power plant right here, which means that we would probably see, considering that the prevailing winds would take most of that radiation north, that most of these hospitals would actually be set up in a fairly localized area within the Russian Don, in between Krasnodar, Stavropol, and maybe Makhachkala, if I'm mispronouncing that. Y'all know what I'm talking about, the capital of Dagestan. They would be set up within that area, because that would be free from radiation, the prevailing winds wouldn't be bringing it down to that area, and not only that, it would be logistically a lot easier to transport a larger amount of people to these hospitals that are a very short distance away, instead of them being spread out across the entirety of the Russian Federation. So going off of that, that is an interesting idea. That's actually a really good question. But I do not believe that it would stand up to scrutiny, especially when we're talking about these hospitals are being set up everywhere within Western Russia, all the way from St. Petersburg and Murmansk, and all the way down into the area of Krasnodar, from what we understand. It spans the entirety of Western Russia. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Very good question, by the way. And thank you so much once again, Purple Gerbil, for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are now going to be moving on into our last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the remainder of the news.
All right, and this one goes to Airplane Flyer, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Airplane Flyer, for that very generous support and helping to keep the work running. And sadly, no comment to address. But thank you very much, good sir, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you so much for the support, Airplane Flyer, and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who help to make this channel possible, help us to keep it rolling. And while you didn't throw in a comment, your support means a lot. It makes this channel a continued possibility. And so I gotta say, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And of course, thank you so much once again for making this channel possible and helping us to keep this thing running. And with that, we are now going to be moving on from the question segment and on up into the rest of the Russian Federation's news. Well, actually, really quickly, I'm going to shoot you all over to China really quickly, because we were able to hear that apparently China is trying to make a little bit of a friendship with Ukraine. They got that wholesome music playing, that if you know what I mean. But anyways, China and Ukraine are friendly countries. China will continue to expand grain imports from Ukraine and jointly maintain uninterrupted logistics channels and international food security. Wang Yi. That is a direct quote from the Chinese Foreign Minister, Wang Yi. Now, this is something so interesting, Matthew, because I'm reading through this good neighbor talk, and I'm seeing a couple of interesting things that Wang Yi laid out in the statement. China will continue to tie its economic tendrils into Ukraine even greater over the remainder of the war, and also we are going to be jointly maintaining uninterrupted logistics channels and international food security, meaning that we're going to be making sure that the Middle East and East Africa is fed with Ukrainian grain, so that way we can look like their great saviors and get a little bit more favor diplomatically with the nations in East Africa and the Middle East to continue our One Belt, One Road program. Those are the two big things I got out of this statement from Wang Yi.
You know, that's very funny, Enforcer, because I also got the same thing out of it as well. Basically, the way I translate this statement right here from China is China, like you said, is basically telling the, Ukraine that we're about to get really big leverage over your country, and you're going to become so reliant on selling your grain to China, and also reliant upon our logistics channels, that you won't want to pull away from China. And essentially, this is a very sly way, kind of like along the Belt and Road Initiative type of strategy here, of trying to pull Ukraine economically into China's sphere of influence. That's the way I see it as well.
Now, you know something that is really interesting, okay? Wait, I've been saying this. If Ukraine had just gone through the war and it just said nothing in support or condemnation of China, China would have left them alone. But because they sent Kubala over there to China recently, and he's getting to talk to him, now Ukraine is showing up directly on China's radar for them to pull them into their sphere. And this little statement right here is making it very clear that this is a part of the One Belt, One Road program, and they are planning on pulling Ukraine into it. Because the fact that they said they will expand grain imports, why would they do that? There's no reason to do that. Like, let me explain this. China was buying pre-war the amount of grains that they needed. Like, they didn't need any more of it. They didn't need any less of it. They were buying exactly the amount that China needed. Now they're saying they're going to expand it. Why is that? They already have a surplus. They're expanding it because they're going to buy Ukrainian grain at slightly higher prices than other countries are, so that way they can start to build up their share of the Ukrainian grain exports to be larger, and they will have a lot more control over Ukraine governmentally in the future because of this very deep economic connection, and because Ukraine is largely a monolithic economy centered around its agricultural industry. Going off of that, it is very, very clear now that Wang Yi has made it quite obvious that the Chinese are a concerning threat to Western interests inside of Ukraine. And I think that something needs to be done about this by Western governments, because if no one's paying attention to this, this is going to end up going badly. And a lot of people are going to say, no, Zelensky wouldn't do that. Oh, sure, he wouldn't. But the Ukrainian grain companies that are privately owned, that are looking to make the most money, are going to be selling to the Chinese, because they're going to be offering to buy the grain at a little bit of a higher price than Rwanda's going to be offering to buy it at. And so for that reason, whether Zelensky wants it or not, now they're going to get themselves pulled into a Chinese sphere. That doesn't really sound that great. And also,
it's the old classic tale of they saw the low-hanging fruit, and it was too good to be true, but they're going to go grab for it anyway. The truth is here, the West has been helping prop up Ukraine's economy during the entire war. Some of the aid we're sending actually goes to fund the Ukrainian government to keep it running. So while it would be very good to sell this grain, which right now Ukraine's had somewhat of a hard time selling the grain, because for one, Poland didn't like their economy being flooded with such a cheap product, because that ultimately hurt their farmers. So Ukraine's really been struggling to find somewhere to really sell all their grain. And China saw this opportunity like, oh, look, this is our way to like get in the door to Ukraine's economy. And Ukraine should say, and hopefully they do come out and say this eventually, and say, while we appreciate the offer, China, we're going to pass on that because we just think it's best to stay really close to our Western allies and not go into your sphere just to make a quick buck. because that's all this is going to result in is a quick buck. Because long term, this could be very devastating to Ukraine's relationship with the West and also their economy as a whole.
And let's see. I'm trying to see here if I can get a chart showing us the amount of grain that is purchased from China alone out of all Ukrainian grain exports. It looks as though it's pretty hard to do that, but Statista made a map, and just to show y'all, the largest purchasers of Ukrainian grain are China, Spain, and Romania, and they're all measured at around 10%. They don't get into any metrics, though, of how much greater than 10% it is. And from what I remember last, China was the largest by far, making up around a third of all Ukrainian grain exports being shipped to China. They're now going to try and grow that to be even greater than a third. Now they're going to be moving on to having clearly the majority share of all Ukrainian grain exports being controlled by the Chinese, and of course being bought at specific prices. That is going to start to change the way that the Ukrainian government operates, because they're going to have to start considering the economic woes of departing with China on unfriendly terms. And that is what is going to start causing some issues. And I'm seeing some people saying, let's see, doesn't China rely on imports or exports? China actually has a pretty decent agricultural base, but they do rely on some imports because their economy, their population is incredibly large, and they can get the food cheaper elsewhere. They're not going to go and grow it in China for more. And that's kind of what they do with Ukraine. And also, the other thing to get out of the statement is that they said jointly maintain uninterrupted logistics channels and international food security. This is a really big thing in the One Belt, One Road program. Talking points about the Chinese is that they're able to maintain security. And that's a big thing for a lot of the countries that they're talking to, because most of them are in East Africa, where it's absolute hell on earth, and it's like a free-for-all, where people are, controlled by warlords and whatnot, and they're coming in and saying, hey, we can actually bring the kind of stability that y'all been looking for quite a while, for decades at this point. We can actually bring it to y'all. We can make sure that the food keeps flowing and the good times keep coming. And that's why y'all ought to join us. And it's a great sales pitch, because no one else gives a damn about East Africa. Like as far as the major countries go, the European Union does not care. The United States doesn't really care. Russia, of course, doesn't have the ability to care. I mean, they're too broke. And so China is the only one in East Africa going, hey, we can actually give y'all a good life. That's a damn good sales pitch, considering that there's not another one out there. And so we can see that they're starting to incorporate Ukraine into that sales pitch. They're starting to go, look at this, Ukraine. You're such a big part of what we are and what we do. We're maintaining food security for so many people. We're looking like some great guys, not only for helping y'all out economically, but for keeping everyone fed in East Africa and the Middle East and everything. We ought to become even better friends. You know what? Maybe a ceasefire would be good. They're going to start doing something like that. I will put money on it. But also at the same time, while we see that there's something interesting going on with the Chinese, we were also able to see that finally some footage and videos came out of the interceptions that occurred the other day. And I gotta say, I love to see
all those NATO aircraft out there. That's beautiful.
Man, I love to see this H-6, this old clunker, being followed by an F-16 actually carrying AMRAAMs, which is really nice, an F-35, and then also a Canadian FA-18. I like to see it, and I think that's a good little message to send. We also got to see from the Russian Tu-95 a video of the interception, and it looked more intimidating from the Tu-95. Here's what it looked like from there. Just getting mobbed. It's like, this one that's interesting. That F-18 actually has the arresting hook down. That's kind of interesting. I wonder why. But man,
even if they come off of the aircraft carrier, they're supposed to retract that in flight, correct?
I think they are. I don't know why it's deployed. That's a little interesting, because you see the FA-18 right there. It doesn't have the arresting hook down. But then in the next clip, it does. I don't know why.
Maybe they're going to try to arrest the Chinese plane.
Dude, they're going to tow it. They're like, move your plane or you're going to get impounded. That's it, man. Man, Vlad and Xi were up there on their tiny plane, and they were getting pounded. But they were getting impounded.
I'm telling you what.
But moving on from that really quickly and into a little bit of American news. Usually we don't get into this at all, but this is something interesting that happened today. The leader of the Sinaloa cartel, named El Mayo, was arrested today in an FBI sting in El Paso, Texas. This is very rare to see something like this. And according to what we have heard, Mexican drug lord Ismael Elmeo Zambada, co-founder and leader of the Sinaloa cartel, detained during a sting operation in El Paso, Texas. Very good work by the FBI, I'm assuming, that most likely conducted the sting. And it's interesting to hear that once again, the United States and Mexico seem to be trying to combat the cartels as best as they can, although it's a fairly difficult route ahead for both sides, considering that large organized crime organizations are usually fairly difficult to deal with and take a lot of time to try and curb or control. Moving on from that and into...
You know what I want to know, though? There's going to be a hell of a story, almost like a movie plot level story that comes out about this, because those guys never show up in the United States. They know better than to show up in the United States, because they're going to get arrested and they're going to get found out. So however they were lured to actually come to Texas, that's what I really want to know about. I want to know if their plane was perhaps rerouted or redirected toward Texas, and maybe they didn't catch on until the last second, and then they were arrested, or maybe somebody snitched or turned on somebody and it sort of handed them over. Whatever the case is, that was a feat to see that both of those guys, it was the son of El Chapo and also El Mayo as well, who's a really big-time Sinaloa operative. So that's wild to see, man. Like, that's a huge deal, really.
Man, I gotta say, it is a big deal. I mean, it is a massive deal. That's why we're taking a rare moment to cover American news, because the arresting of a leader of a cartel is rare. It's very rare. It's tough for most people to do. I mean, y'all have heard the stories of El Chapo, and also, who was the guy in Colombia, Matthew? Who am I thinking of?
El Mencho?
Not El Mencho. It was kind of the chubby guy.
It's El Chapo. There's, let's see here. What's his name? Damn, I forgot his name, man. He's on a Netflix show. I forgot his name, though.
I know. I can't think of it either. But y'all know who I'm talking about. I'm sure many people in the live chat will put out their names.
Escobar.
Yeah, Pablo Escobar. They made movies about these people because it was so hard to catch them. It was literally an entire story just to catch these people and finally try and put them in prison, hopefully permanently. And so you can kind of get the idea that when one of these guys are caught, it is a huge deal because they're incredibly difficult to catch. They're so difficult to catch, they make movies out of the stories of just trying to catch these people. And so I got to say, very nice to see that they were able to get El Mayo, and I hope that they get El Lunchable soon. Moving on from that and into Washington, D.C., we were also able to hear that, of course, Iran is funding and supporting protests inside the United States, but we were able to hear of another financial error, once again by the Pentagon. Someone needs to get down on this, I'll be honest with you, because this isn't really a good look. Pentagon finds accounting.
Man, they're terrible at math. How the hell did they lose $2 billion more, man? This is like a routine thing now. It's like, how's this happening?
It's like, how the hell? So the Pentagon found an accounting error today worth $2 billion again. And due to the errors, the Defense Department can now spend a further $2 billion in weapons to Ukraine to cover the amount that was already approved by the President of the United States. I just have to say really quickly, okay, it was kind of funny the first time they did it, but now it's looking a little stupid, okay? Because I'm perfectly fine with trying to find ways to fudge things to get more support for Ukraine. You know, that's just kind of a part of workings in the government. But at the same time, you can't do that to this level where you're literally sitting here and saying, oh, accounting error every single, 2 months. Because you start to erode a little bit of the public's trust in the citizenry that the Pentagon can actually manage any kind of money at all. You know, it's like, that doesn't sound like it's great that the support's going to be getting on its way, but the statement in its own right is starting to seem a little embarrassing to me, whether it's just a very politicized way to try and get them more support without having to get approval from the Congress or what. I got to say, it's like, it's a little interesting to me, and I'm not really that big of a fan of that. And also, someone's like, damn, I want to find $2 billion. Yeah, and no one thinks about that, because it's on a governmental perspective. But they found an accounting error worth $2 billion. It's like, do people got to grasp? That's a lot of money. I mean, that's hell. Let me think of what that would be. That would be
an aircraft carrier.
Nah, that's a little too that's too small. I think an aircraft carrier is like $11 billion. That'd be like a Zumwalt class destroyer right there that they just didn't even account for. It's like how in the world can you do that? It's like this is I don't really like it that much. And a lot of people are going to go, why don't you like it? It's more support for Ukraine. Sure, it's more support for Ukraine. Like, that's great. But the United States Department of Defense continuously saying that they're having accounting errors just doesn't look good to the on a public level. Like, me looking at this, I go, damn, and these people are in charge of the military, and they can't even account for a whopping $2 billion. I mean, I would get it if they had accounting errors, maybe in the millions, because there's literal trillions of dollars of assets and money flowing through the military every year. But for them to say 2 billion, I mean, that's a number where you're like, dang, that's a lot of money right there to not be accounting correctly for. But anyways,
well, I guess when he's got a new counter argument against the Russian bots that always come in talking about, oh, Ukraine says they're not sure what happened to like $1 billion. Oh, it's like, well, the United States has consistently for months now lost $2 billion a chunk. So it's like, there's no difference here in the United States, and we say Ukraine's more corrupt, but yet we have the United States not accounting for $2 billion in aid. So who the hell even knows anymore? Whatever.
And also, JC9 said, if Force are doing math for the Pentagon, yeah, it must be. And I would tell you this: if I was in the Pentagon and someone gave me that job, I'd tell them I'm not ready for that job. I don't do math well. Pick someone else. Like, that's what I'd say. But anyways. Nevertheless, very interesting to hear.
Somebody said they found it in El Mayo's basement. They brought him back. It's like, man, that's what they realized. El Mayo stole $2 billion. Damn, go get him. It's like, is that what it is? We're gonna blame it on El Mayo now?
Man, I'm telling you. I mean, I think I'm like, dude, it's El Mayo. But dude, I gotta say though, what a goofy nickname for a cartel leader, El Mayo. I don't like that. But anyways, moving on from that. And on over into the area of Ukraine, it is time for us to get on into some interesting news from Moscow, as we were able to hear that apparently Viktor Sobolev is once again trying to bring forward an idea of bringing forth some draconian measures in the Russian Federation. And so here's the clip. When you propose a new law and you say that Vladimir Lenin even brought this up, that's not a good beginning.
Создавать и штрафные роты, как это было в Великую Отечественную войну, и штрафные батальоны для тех, кто вот нарушает и серьезно нарушает воинскую дисциплину или проявляет трусость и другие проступки, которые в принципе ведут к поражению. Поэтому я призываю держать этот закон. Спасибо.
All right.
Damn, he sounded a little bit wild out here, like,
I want to say, in support of the state and the axis of the Russian Federation, we must create penal battalions.
Aw, man, did someone say penal? Shut your mouth.
We need to create the penal battalions, Blade, to punish the people who are not for the war or for bad military service. Put them to death. Put them in death squad.
But it's like, man, that guy's a little wild, and it's once again the Russians getting a little wild out there with the draconian measures. Moving on from that, though, and on into our location unknowns, we do have some interesting ones to look at down here. And we were able to see that the Russians, Matthew, have outfitted a D-30 artillery piece with Contact 1 explosive reactive armor.
No way.
What
in
treat.
The hell? I saw this today. A good friend, Trent Talenko, shared this with us today, and I was blown away when I saw this. I was like, what in the world even were they thinking with this? Man, this is crazy.
Man, they giving some extra spritz to the drones blowing up on the D-30s. It's like, if you thought you had it bad when the drone blew up on the D-30, wait until the ERA tiles blow up towards your face as well. It adds, like, extra spice. Instead of, like, trying to dampen the explosion or anything, it kills the crew. So it's, like, not a smart idea. But they're trying, I guess. But moving on from that and into our next bit of location unknowns, we also got to see the Russians using some of that North Korean ammo. It's right there. And it's right there. And it's right there. It's North Korean. It's actually there. And it's actually real. Moving on from
It has a stellar safety rating. Use it at will. Feel free to use it. In fact, it has such a safety rating on it. There's the Russians that could tell you about it. They're no longer here to tell you.
Man,
whoa, Jack.
Whoa,
Jack. 11 Bobcats.
Whoa, dude. I was about to add to your joke and even straight up. Dude, the safety quality, the safety aspects of North Korean ammo is so good, no one will even tell you that it's bad. because the folks that found out it was bad, they didn't live to tell the tale. But moving on from that, damn, those losses. Look at that. 11 Bobcats lost. My lord, that's pretty high.
Damn.
And 1,230 Russian soldiers got wiped out over the past 24 hours. That's a pretty good number. Along with 26 APCs, 79 supply trucks, 11 main battle tanks, 45 artillery pieces, 33 drones, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 11 Bobcat skid steers. Overall, it's been an incredibly good day, and I gotta say, we love to see these kinds of losses getting put out there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Moving on from that, we do have a little question for y'all. A really big question for y'all. Reports say that Russia is setting up military hospitals across the country. We've talked about that a good bit tonight. And now it's finally time to ask y'all, what's really going on with that? Some people are saying that they're preparing for war with NATO. Others are saying that they're trying to scare NATO's allies. Some are saying that it's like a ruse or a moose or a false move. And some others are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking and what are people saying?
All right, so with the news about the military hospitals being set up across Russia for some unknown reason, what's really going on? 52% said Russia is preparing for war with NATO, while 27% said Russia is simply trying to scare NATO allies, and 10% said it seems like a ruse or a false move. And on this one, I'll be honest, I'm actually a little bit uncertain about this. Because right when I first saw it, the immediate thought that jumped in my head was, oh crap, it looks like the Russians are preparing for war, and they're getting ready for mass casualties that might result from the war itself. So that was what first came into my head when I saw that. But at the same time, I'm not really sure if it's something that extreme. It could simply be maybe a false move. They could be setting up new like stationary posts or something like that for the military. That's a possibility as well. Honestly, kind of unlikely in my opinion. Or it could simply be that Russia is trying to scare NATO allies into thinking that they're preparing for war, and it could go down any day, and that might maybe encourage NATO to take a de-escalatory route instead of deciding to escalate things even further. So I'm kind of uncertain, so I kind of fall within the 12%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that in my opinion, it looks to me like they're trying to scare NATO allies. I know Matthew got that poll one from me because our mom was asking us earlier, what do you make of that? And so I said, well, it's either that they're trying to scare us into thinking they go to war, or they're actually trying to go to war, and I'd have to be within the 27%. Everything always begins as a diplomatic maneuver before an actual action. So I would say that this is most likely the beginning of some form of a diplomatic maneuver. And if the diplomatic maneuver fails, it will evolve into being an actual preparation for an act of war. That's what my opinion would be on that at the moment. But moving on from that, and on down into Vovchance, we also get to see the Corn Group using some UAV. Yeah, that's loud. Dude, if you heard that thing near you, I think you'd have a heart attack and die because you think the biggest bee on Earth is coming to sting you. For real. Oh, there we go.
No,
hey, we got a little bit of music. It's like a little party up in here. Yeah, there we go. We love it. Oh, they blew them up. Well, they don't love it. Man, I'd like a little bit of preppy white girl music to complete my war footage. Really makes it feel whole, you know? Like it's like yeah, there we go.
We see that thing. It's rather shaky coming down.
Dude, it's the Corn Group, and they're landing in the corn.
Oh,
dude, it's Cornception. Crazy. Dude, who would have thunk? But anyways, moving on from that. We're now moving on into our next clip from the area where we got to see the Russians trying to drive down a busy street at night. And when I mean busy, I mean all the Russians on the street got blown up, so they're staying around for a while. It's a pretty crowded street. We'll slash the tires. The Russian, this guy is used to saying that because he used to slash the tires of people back in Krasnodar and then strip all the copper out of it. But anyways.
Что-то железяку оттащить надо. Давай, давай. Вот эту, слева которая.
Let's drag the burning pieces of crap into the grass. This won't create any problems.
И вот эту, которая с огнем, получится ногой откинуть.
Yeah, just kick it with your foot. That'll help.
Yeah, kick it with your foot, please. And keep
What is a Ruski foot warmer, блядь? Warm the foot
Бля,
up until it's
Герза,
red.
там мина лежит,
Oh,
стой.
there's a mine.
Oh, there's a
Watch
mine.
that.
Hey.
Dodge the mine, good sir.
Там мина лежит, ёпта. Где? Вон,
He said, where?
вон мина. Как нам проехать, блядь? Смотри.
Uh-oh. Oh, he's gonna put the engine over the burning fire.
Во.
Smart move.
Вот это круглое? Да. Я ее пинал только что.
He said, just kicked it.
But I just kicked it.
Bro.
Oh, two of
Где
them.
мина нахуй? Это точно мина? Да. Бля,
Are
я
you
пинал,
sure?
там что-то не видел, бля? Нет, нет.
Whoa!
Oh my god!
Oh my goodness!
Oh! They hit it!
Oh my goodness! No freaking
Man,
way!
what the hell kind of stupid Russian thinking is this? Like, this is like top tier stupidity, even for the Russians. That was stupid as hell.
Dude, he said, "Thought there's a man there," and the guy went, "Oh God!" They just kicked it, and then they drove over the other. And it's like,
Man, they literally spoke about it, talked about it, dreamed about it, and everything, and they still ran over it. What the
dude, they went and had an investigatory committee for the investigatory committee, and then an investigatory to investigate the investigatory committee that originally was the investigatory committee that found out that it was a landmine, and then they drove over it. Just to listen to
dummies?
Смотри.
How will we drive through? Where is the mine? Here.
Вот это
This
круглое?
round
Да.
one? Yes.
Я ее пинал.
But they just kicked it. If two mines.
Где мина нахуй?
Are you sure those are mines?
Бля, я ее пинал,
Are you
там что-то
sure?
не
And I
видел.
just kicked it. Have you seen? No, I. And then they got it.
Oh my god.
What bozos?
The dude says, "Are you sure they're mine?" So before anybody has a chance to yelp out in pain, he runs it over.
Dude, and then this guy, he went, like, listen.
Нет, нет.
Like, I was just talking about it. It's like, how the hell could y'all run over it? Anyways, Russians.
I feel like I suffered just as bad as the Russians, like just getting to witness this stupidity. I suffered just as bad as getting hit with the mine.
I'm telling you, man, the one thing that's getting lost more than Russians' men in this war are Russian brains. Like, I'm telling you, they'd have none. But moving on from that,
That dude yelled like that cat, that Tom and Jerry. He yelled like Tom. He went.
She's something like that. Let me. Hang on. Hold on. Here we go. Just like that.
Oh god.
Right after they got done talking about it. Oh my lord. Anyways, moving on to the Drovchina, we got to see Ukrainian drones hitting their targets. Oh, actually, sorry, a technical, the Ukrainian technical in the 3rd Brigade shot down a target. We assumed that this footage is a little bit old because there's snow on the ground, but we still wanted to show it because the footage is new.
Блядь, дрон! Дрон над нами!
Давай, давай! Азу!
Oh, I'm hearing some Jaws music there. We'll have to mute that. Anyways, we can see them driving on.
Oh. Oh.
Man, it's foggy out there.
Man, I've never do you really like notice really seriously if you really think about it, you've never seen the Ukrainians do anything stupid like that ever, even remotely close to it. Like seriously, the difference in training between the Ukrainians and the Russians, it's not just hyperbole. They are like significantly worse trained in the Russian military. Those guys literally don't know what the hell they're doing. They probably couldn't survive just normal life. And now they're being put into the military where they're really not going to survive. It's just insane to see it.
Dude, remember that story that one Russian guy gave where he was like, so anyways, we were in the woods and there was a doorbell on the side of the tree. So someone went up and rang it and the garland of explosives fell around his head and blew up on him. It's like, why would you push the doorbell? It's like, it's in the woods. It's like, doesn't that scream suspicious?
That's like the Tom and Jerry traps that the mouse used to set. And it's like the cat goes and presses it and then he yells.
No, very yet. Do you hear in the air? Ah, or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh my lord!
No.
But moving on from that into our next clue, we also got to see a Russian KAMAZ truck getting blown up. Oh my lord! Yeah, tonight's been one hell of a night just watching that clip. And they got the truck, of course, and we can see some extra debris burning around. JSM said, "This is hell." Yes, this is hell Looney Tunes version for sure for the Russians.
Could you imagine if you had like even an ounce of competence as a Russian, and you know that regardless of how smart you are, you're going to go in there with a whole unit full of people like that that literally just ran over a mine if they spoke about it, looked at it, and everything, and inspected it, and you'll still get run over with the mine. It's like there's no hope. There's absolutely no hope in the Russian military.
Dude, the Russians are like every stupid character in a horror movie. Hey, we ought to get in the car and just drive away from here. It seems suspicious. No, 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 no. We can't drive away. Let's go into that weird, creepy room with all the chainsaws. that's like the Russians, man. They're just like, no, 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 no. Let's not do something smart, like not push the doorbell. Let's go over there and push it and see what happens. It's like, you're an idiot. It's like, that's stupid. But anyways, we also got to see some Russians stringing straight from a puddle. Because if you thought stupidity died with that crew in that truck, no, it didn't. And we can hear them playing the rock music as they put the ladles in the puddle. Drink up, fellas. We got that dysentery up in here. Call it the Crimean War, because this should be gank. This is nasty. Look, he even showed, he's like, look, I drink it all. He's like, here, have another sip of this nasty shit in the road. It's filled with, like, oil and feces, but it's good. Here, have another. He's like, I'll take it.
And they're just drinking it straight off the road, like no purification or, oh my God. Oh.
Get all that down. Have some more dysentery. Yay. Okay, your turn.
Dude,
let's take
a live straw. A live straw is like $10, $15. It's a piece of plastic with some fabric in it or something. It's like, why?
Cheers. But moving on from this nastiness, we also got to see a Ukrainian raid conducted against the Russians' forward positions in the Severonsky Forest, and we got to see this shown to us today. Check it out. Now we can see here the Russian position. And we can see it getting blown up. You can see the Ukrainians highlighted in green, Russians in red. It's a little raid, a little fun one. And we can see them shooting at the Russians as they move around in the hellscape of the woods. Let's see here, microplastics, least of his concern. I would say that the wiggling microbacteria is his concern. That it just went into his gut. JCHD, Matthew said, you get to be thirsty is if for that. Oh, bled. I have seen people more thirsty than that, hot dog man being one.
Also, Terry Butterfield said, the live straw won't filter out the chemicals, though. I think you might actually be correct on that, but at least it would increase your chances of survival. Like, it would at least get the other pathogens and stuff like that out, presumably, like the other really horrible stuff and the bacteria. But still, though, just drinking that straight up from the ground like that is just insane what could be in that water. All kinds of, like, little nasty biomes could be in that. Terrible.
Ooh, biomes. We sound like...
Biologies.
Terrible afflictions. But moving on...
Whole colonies of bacteria, like whole families.
Dude, it's like all of them, man. You got, like, the sons, the daughters, the fathers. You got them all up here. Also, check out this Bradley that was under attack today near Avdiivka. Oh. But they keep rattling because that's what they do. Oh, lay it out!
Damn.
Lay him low!
Reverse error.
Oh. And they just keep going like it's nothing. I mean, like, just Chad-like even. But moving on from that, very nice to see that Bradley doing some work. We were able to hear that the Ukrainian elements of the 31st Brigade were able to break out and make their ways back to Ukrainian lines, apparently without suffering any significant losses. They said without losses. I would assume that there were some, because every combat action it involves some sort of a loss, whether it be an injury. It would be an absolute miracle if they broke out without any kind of an injury or death. But still great to hear that those elements of the 31st were able to escape encirclement and rejoin the main line. Moving on from that, we also got to see a Ukrainian soldier using father's shotgun. I got to say, though, this thing is absolutely bussin'. Like, I really like shotguns like that. Matthew knows, because I actually have one like this. And we can see this guy is really happy to be using it. He's smiling pretty big. And we can also see here this guy with the anti-drone gun. Believe it. Very cool. But moving on from that and out of that little bit of news and further down to Novomykhailivka, we also got to see the 79th once again repelling the Russians today. They got that Scooby-Doo music going on. Look at that little Russian column. And we can see them getting hit. They're getting smacked around, blade. Really tough, like, you know what I mean, blade. They're really getting. Oh, they don't get blown up kind of nicely, blade. We can see that one also has smoking as well, blade.
It's a big boom.
I'm telling you what, Cameron.
If Madiar was here right now, he'd say, oh, yes, oh, big boom, big shockwave.
Boom, shaka, blade, boom.
Oh, yes.
Oh, what are the charges? Blowing up a Russian and succulent Chinese Russian colony? And how dare you, sir?
But moving on from that and further down the line, we also got to see an AS-90 in action. And boy, would you look at that thing. It's pretty cool. But, it's, you know, it is what it is. Moving on from that, and even further on down the line and into the area of Kherson, we also got to see the 7th Motorized Rifle Regiment filtering some delicious water. Check it out. Tasty blade. At least these guys are filtering it at a minimum. I mean, you know, like, they're not like the other guys drinking it straight out of the puddle.
Or they're filtering it using like a scrap of t-shirt.
Man, they got that drip going on. it just makes the water a little bit more clear. That's the end of that clip.
I don't think that really did anything for it. I think that water's still disgusting.
I think it still is. It still looks piss yellow. But moving on from that, and all the way down here, also, I forgot to mention this. The British did put out a report that the hit on the ferry near Port Kafkask is going to most likely pose a major logistical concern for the Russian Federation. Once again, backing up what we were seeing on stream a couple of days ago. So I just wanted to make sure to put that out there because, you know, some people, they doubt us with our news coverage. We actually had someone like that in the first 10 minutes. They said, excuse me, if Romania shut down those Ukrainian, those Russian drones, I'm pretty sure the mainstream news would report it on it before you do. Like, we're not a news channel that actually, like, does our job, unlike others who just, like, copy and paste crap from the mainstream and then repeat it on their own channel. We actually do work here on this channel. And so I just want to make sure to show proof like this every once in a while. So once again, prove that we do work and that we get things right days before even entire defense intelligence industries can get this kind of information correct. So just wanted to put that out there. Enforcer 1, the mainstream 0. I just wanted to make sure to put that out there because we have to. But moving on from that and on up into the area of Kyiv, we got to see some fairly interesting speech today from President Volodymyr Zelensky. He's back to doing the daily speech.
I wish you health.
But
we have speech again.
Short.
I wish you health, good Ukrainians.
I wish you health, good Ukrainians. But here is the speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці і українки. Сьогодні був насичений день. Доповідь міністра внутрішніх справ України Ігоря Клименка щодо затримання підозрюваного у вбивстві Ірини Фаріон. Попросив міністра представити суспільству та журналістам всю необхідну інформацію. Звичайно, це триваючі процесуальні дії. З'ясовуються всі обставини цієї справи. Завтра має бути більше інформації публічно. Друге, за сьогодні була дуже детальна і тривала розмова з міністром з питань стратегічних галузей промисловості, з Олександром Камишиним, аналіз роботи міністерства та відповідних підприємств нашої оборонки. Те, що досягнуто, і те, що заплановане. Хороші результати є. Багато різних аспектів і по нашій броньованій техніці, і щодо дронів, і по артилерії. Я вдячний кожному і кожній, хто працює в наших оборонних підприємствах, в нашій оборонній індустрії. Відчутно, що галузь стає вже зовсім іншою, більш сильною, більш ефективною. Дуже важливо, що нарешті в оборонному виробництві почали реально та помітно працювати іноземні кошти. І це велике наше досягнення. Не лише кошти державного бюджету, але й інвестиції партнерів в оборонне виробництво в Україні. Сьогодні ми визначились із Укроборонпромом, з нашими ракетниками щодо оновлених завдань. По багатьох напрямках маємо не просто вже потенціал чи якісь певні результати, а постачання для виконання завдань силами оборони та безпеки, постачання, що зростає. Плюс по наших далекобійних дронах ми готуємо кроки, щоб вийти на більшу кількість і більшу якість. Україна свої інтереси завжди вмітиме захищати. Сьогодні ж провів нараду із відповідальними за державні підприємства. Ті, що колись були збитковими або не завжди контролювались нашою державою. Зараз працюють саме так, як потрібно, та дають гроші в державний бюджет. І це десятки мільярдів гривень, які зміцнюють Україну. Ще одне. Сьогодні була нарада із секретарем РНБО щодо ухвалених рішень РНБО і ставки та планування нових. Я дякую усім, хто збільшує можливості України, нашої держави, наших виробництв, наших людей. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто б'ється заради нашої незалежності. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 883 of the war. And I gotta say that it is very interesting to see that, of course, the news was very interesting today. And of course, we're moving on into the second segment of this night's stream. And that is where we get to talk to all of y'all. It is incredibly fun time. I suggest you stay around. But of course, I have to give huge thanks and huge shout out to about the whopping 59,000 people who have watched this stream in just 2 hours. I gotta say that that's pretty crazy, getting out of the voice and getting out of joking around. That's actually pretty crazy that so many of y'all come here to the stream every single night and choose us to be y'all's choice of news. We are entirely honored and extremely grateful and appreciative of all of y'all picking us to be y'all's primary news source, and we take that with a lot of pride. And I gotta say that once again tonight, I've got to give a huge thanks to the tens of thousands of y'all for watching. We may not get to know each and every one of y'all personally. I wish we could. But we are still happy to have all of y'all here nonetheless. And we thank y'all all so much for respecting our voice and our story on the news, because we greatly respect y'all equally for being here and listening to it. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And it's time for us to move on into the last segment of this stream tonight. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and it's now time for the final segment of the stream. We have a poll to address, and then we have super chats to address, and we also have a live chat questions and the Morse code as well. But first off, we have a poll. And the question says, Russian forces have begun rapidly adding air defense around the Kerch Bridge. And the question is, will Russia be able to protect it successfully? That's the key word. 64% said no, Ukraine will destroy it eventually, while 18% said only time will tell, and let's wait. And 14% said yes, Russia will protect the Kerch Bridge. And this is probably in response to what Syrskyi said the other day on the interview. He said that Ukraine was dedicated to destroying the Kerch Bridge completely here in the near future. So this has Russia in a bit of a tizzy right now, and they're trying to get all the air defense that they have left, whatever that may be, if anything, to try to protect the bridge. They're also adding barges around the bridge as well to try to help protect it. And to me, that's not going to be enough. Ukraine, if they're really determined to do it, they will destroy the bridge through some other means that the Russians can't prepare for. So I'm with the 64%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with the 64% as well. Nothing has been proven to be invulnerable in the war. It is only a matter of time before Ukraine is able to hit it and destroy it. So I would say it is only a matter of time. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Do you think that Russia will probably end up bringing out their entire barge fleet? Because they've already brought out about 20 barges or so to put around the Kerch, and they're adding more to it. Yeah, they're old nasty barges too. I don't know if they're sinking them again or they're floating them, hoping that'll stop something. But it's just, there's really nothing the Russians can do at this point to stop it, because the Ukrainians last time, I believe they drove the truck filled with explosives. Isn't that correct? They drove that over the bridge and then blew it up?
I think so. And then there was another time where a drone boat ended up hitting a pillar and toppling a piece of a bridge, or a piece of the bridge. And then there was another moment, I forgot how they did it the other time. I think there was 3 independent times that they've hit the bridge during the war, but each one of them ended up being successful. So it was why would the 4th one be successful? They will find a way.
They will find a way. If there's a will, there's a way, and the Ukrainians are masters at finding the way. So I think Russia's gonna FAFO on that one. But anyways, jumping into our super chat questions here, we have a very generous donation from Kimberly Brokaw, who's always supporting the channel Big League, and thank you very much, Kimberly, once again for that $100 support, the biggest super chat of the night, and we appreciate it very much. And sadly, no comment to address. But Enforcer, what do you say about Kimberly's big support?
I gotta say, Kimberly Brokaw, thank you so much. You've been here forever. You've been here for a very long time. And I gotta say, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who helped make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. And so I gotta say, thank you massively for that support. Thank you for enjoying this channel greatly. Thank you for wanting to see it to keep on running, because folks like you help us to be able to keep this thing on air. Y'all help us to be able to do this as a job, and we massively appreciate the very small amount of y'all who super chat every single night to make this stream possible for tens of thousands of people every single hour. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Oh, and they want us to take one from the chat.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
They want us to take one from the chat. Kimberly Brokaw said, forgot to tell you to take one from the chat. And we have to do it. We have to oblige the request. And so, Matthew, what do we got from the live chat?
All right, so the live chat question, sponsored by Kimberly Brokaw, is going to go to, let's see here. This one goes to Indy Andy 4C. He says, why aren't they deploying military hospitals inside of Ukraine?
Interesting question. I don't know. Maybe the Ukrainian army doesn't have that kind of infrastructure. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe they're not taking enough casualties to be deploying military hospitals like that. I don't really know. But that is a very interesting.
I think he might have meant about that question. He might have meant, why is Russia not deploying military hospitals inside of Ukraine?
Oh, well, who knows? I mean, you know, who really? That's a good question. Who really knows? I wouldn't actually have a good answer for that, to be entirely honest with you. But that is a good question. That is a very good hypothetical, or really a rhetorical question more so, is why in the world are they not setting up the military hospitals inside of Ukraine, or inside the occupied areas like maybe Crimea, or Luhansk for that matter. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. I don't really have a good answer for that, but that is still a very thought-provoking question right there. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Oh, Matthew, who's winning the war?
Oh, wait. We got a curveball question here, y'all. We have someone in the live chat. He said, who's winning this war? And let's all say in the live chat, what is the answer? The answer is Ukraine. And I'm going to put it in all caps. This is your permission to put Ukraine in all caps in the live chat and spam it. That's who's winning the war. It's Ukraine, without a doubt.
And so let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I'm going to be very interested. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well indeed. I don't know. I had to laugh like that, but still. With that, thank you so much once again, Kimberly Brokaw, for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here is several super chats combined from BC Skyman, the channel legend, and he put in a $75 donation combined, and huge shout out to BC. Actually, I don't know how to do math. I think he actually put in $85 in donations. I think it is 85 actually, because yeah, it's 85. So I can't do math with the crowd, but BC, please forgive me for the pitiful math skills that we learned in Alabama. But thank you very much for the support as well. And sadly, no comment to address on this one either. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, it is incredibly nice to know, BC Scamming, that you enjoy this channel and support it and to help it to keep on running. You didn't throw in any comments, but the support does a lot to help this channel to keep on going and keep on rolling each and every day. I gotta give you a huge thanks once again for your support and helping to make this channel possible. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. We wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling day by day. And so, huge thank you so much once again to you, BC Skyman. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat here is going to go to Andy L once again, and this time he throws in a $50 donation. And a huge shout out to you, Andy, for that support. And also, Andy went to that range today, like he was telling us about last night on the stream. He went to the range. He showed me the pictures, and Enforcer, I got to show you those pictures as well, because the ranges in Texas are a whole nother level. Like, you think the CMP looks nice. This is a hell of a nice place out here. Yeah. Very, very nice in Texas. I gotta tell you what. And wide open spaces as well. And when you add Andy L's like supreme sniper to the mix, shooting 800 yards, that even makes it better. But Andy, thank you very much for that support. And he says, I'm changing my name to El Brisket. And please take a question from the chat.
I gotta thank you so much for the support, Andy. I mean, El Brisket. I gotta thank you so much for the support, El Brisket, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, that's one hell of a gang name right there, El Brisket. I guess you must be smoking them. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, thank you so much for letting us know about that range day. Now, Matthew, did you send that to me over the Discord?
Oh no, it's on our DMs on Twitter.
Oh man, we're gonna have to look at the DMs.
Are you not monetized?
Oh man, I can't hear you because you're not monetized. Makes $12. Oh man, I got screwed. It's get lost, bozo. Let me see here.
Goofy.
Let me see here. Holy moly, man, that's a pretty good range right there. Dang, that rifle is a pretty good rifle though. Let's see. No full metal jacket allowed. Actions open.
Yeah, that was kind of lame.
And not firing. Rim fire not allowed. They don't allow 22
I agree with that. No
rifle?
rim fire.
What,
yeah, I agree with that rule. Like, cut out the 22.
Why? Why do that? Why be a bully against the 22s? They didn't do nothing wrong.
You see that range, man? Like, you're wasting your time shooting 22 on that range.
Maybe, but one thing I would say is that CMP does have like a cleaner facility, like the target setup and everything. But this is like that. What is it? The 9-hole review channels range. You know what I'm talking about, Matthew? Where they like do out to like 1,200 yards or something. It's like that, but
yeah.
Texas. And I gotta say, I do like it though. I think it looks really nice. Like I would go out here and shoot at this place. But man, that rifle, that is one hell of a rifle right there. I look at that and I'm like, dang, one day we will have a rifle like that. Maybe not soon, but eventually, if we work real hard and save real long, we might have a rifle like that too. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Andy L, and helping this channel to keep on running. I gotta say, I hope you had a fun range day, and not only that, I hope that you also, I hope you really do enjoy being and also, of course, we will make sure to take one from the chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
Also, Andy L said no 223 either. Now I will admit that's a little bit odd not to be able to shoot 223. That is odd because that's what my main gun is 223 or 5.56 either way. That's sad to hear, Andy L. But I guess they want just the big calibers out there.
But Matthew, they didn't say nothing about that 5.45 freaking AK-74.
I saw it banned too.
Man, I wonder if that is banned out there. You see, the CMP, Matthew, would let you shoot 223 and 30 calibers and all that kind of stuff in rim fire. They'll let you do that. So you see that. So you see the CMP has a little bit more flexibility. But I don't really have a lot of rifles I shoot long range that are bigger than 223. I mean, I qualified at 600 yards at the CMP with a M4 with an ACOG. So I don't really know what else I would shoot, really. I mean, I have a PSL, which is in 7.62 by 54R, but like, shooting 600 yards with that thing, with how the scope works, it kind of would be a miracle because the scope isn't really properly aligned to the rifle's line of sight. So you kind of have to end up doing like extreme Kentucky windage to figure out where the bullet's going. But anyways, with that, hey Matthew, you know what? I got the PSL. I'm having to do extreme Kentucky windage, bro. I'm like an Afghan sniper with a PSL, it's like I'm missing everywhere. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Very, very interesting though, Andy. And with that,
and also, by the way, I saw someone ask, can you show the picture of the rifle? Sadly, we can't. We don't want to dox Andy because I don't know if anybody can recognize where the range is or anything like that. So sadly, we can't show it. We don't want to get Andy caught up in the crossfire of any lunatics out there that might be lurking around in the dark shadows of the stream. So don't want to be bringing that out. But I wish we could show it though.
And also one reason why, because people are gonna be like, oh come on, you can't dox someone that easily. You can actually. Because it is very interesting. It is incredibly interesting because over the course of the war of watching a lot of video clips, I can pretty much get it down to within a very, very small area if we wanted to of where these video clips are coming from, if we take enough time to geolocate them and find the proper landmarks. Hell, Matthew and me have just kind of joked around at times being like, hey, I wonder where that is. Like, we'll see a picture and it'll be like a very generic looking picture, but you'll see just one little thing in the picture that looks like an identifiable landmark, and if you give me about 30 minutes on any picture, as long as there's some kind of a landmark in the picture, like it can't just be the desert, like I won't have any clue where that is. But if there is some kind of a landmark, like a distinct building or something, I will be able to find exactly where that picture is, what angle it was taken at, and where, and also from what height off the ground in about 30 minutes. Like, it is very easy to dock someone with pictures like that, so we don't want to take that kind of a risk here on stream with someone like Andy L. We don't want to put him in the crosshairs of crazy people out there. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support, Andy L. We will make sure to get that live chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
So this live chat goes to Knox. He says, how close are we to heading into the worst case scenario of an all-out global war? And he said, also, I'm very new, and thanks to you guys, my knowledge in war has been upgraded, and LSA forever.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and the kind words. That is a very interesting question, Knox. And also, long live the Lee Spring Army. A lot of people become members of the Lee Spring Army quick these days, man. Like, they join, they're new, and then they immediately say, long live the LSA. I love it.
Indeed.
And
good to have you, Knox.
And as far as how close are we to a world war, we're a good ways away, but we're closer than we've ever really been over the past 30 years, at least in my opinion. But that doesn't mean much of anything to me, because we're still a good ways away, in my opinion, from an actual full-on world war. But at the same time, we're closer than ever. It's just that, we're kind of fighting in a fraction at this point. Like, out of all the fractions of a chance that a world war could break out since 1991, how high has it gotten? And we're talking about, it went from like 5% to 7%, because I would say there's maybe a 7% chance of a world war these days compared to the usual 5% or less over most of the time of modern history since 1991. So while it's incredibly low, it's still closer than it's ever been, at least to me. And so I hope that does address that fairly well, and also give a good caveat to that, so that way it isn't extremely concerning sounding, like some people would try and make it out to be. Like, the bombers are flying, everyone's gonna die. Like, it's like, shut up. It's like, that is so stupid. Like, they're still out there doing that, Matthew. Like, they're still out there every single day going, oh, red alert, the bombers are flying. It's like, can you stop? It's like they're flying every day. It's like, that's what they do. It's a state of constant readiness. That's a part of the doctrine. It's stupid to point that out.
Oh, those prepper channels, man. Those prepper channels, they're trying to get people prepping, man. They're trying to get people riled up, a little bit excited, you know what I mean? They're trying to get people just the juices flowing, I'm telling you.
Man, they're just like those people who sit there and go, guess what, folks? Another train robbery happened. It happened in the far out town of Commission. Here's the story. And like goes into
seriously, no, I'm not gonna lie. Like those channels, like those other OSINT channels, if you even call them that, they really give like the actual YouTube channels like us a bad name. Because whenever they go out doing that, we just naturally get lumped in that same group somehow. And like, we're not like involved in that whatsoever. We vet our stuff. And even like tonight, when we show you something like footage from across the border, we don't say like, if you're against this and you're like a denier of the truth. It's like, well, no, there is a small possibility that it could be, maybe being misconstrued, and maybe they aren't shooting across into Ukrainian airspace. That's a possibility, but we present it fairly at least, and some of these other channels don't.
Also, man, like, I cannot stand it. And this is kind of the reason why no one ever gives us a notch of credibility. Like, we'll report on something and say, NATO shot at Romanian drones. Romania shot well, sorry, I just got that all mixed up. A little bushism. But Romania shot at Russian drones. We'll say something like that. And then people want to come in, like this stuck with me tonight. That one person, man, I was talking about that said, excuse me, if this actually happened, the mainstream news would be covering it before you do, sweetie. It's like, we get a notch against our credibility because every other YouTube channel doesn't put any effort at all into actually trying to find news and report on it. Like I can just list all of the times that we got to the news first before anyone else. Hell, during the entire Iran-Iraq thing, well, not the Iran-Iraq thing, the Iran-Israel thing that was happening since October 6th, we have been first to every single story every single time. No joke. We beat everyone. Like, when Iran started firing off the hundreds of rockets and drones towards Israel, we were literally the first in the world to be on air talking about that story. The next one was ABC, and they were 30 minutes behind us. And then on top of that, not only were they 30 minutes behind us, they were very vague with their information. We had the exact number of missiles. We had it mapped out where they were in the Middle East, like what part of Iraq, Jordan, and Syria were they flying over. We had everything. I mean, we had every single little detail. We had it all. And we still showed on that one day alone, we do our research, we do our work, and we're able to not only be quicker than mainstream news, we are able to be more accurate than mainstream news. We do that every day. Like, no joke, we do that every single day of this war, at least in my opinion. And I would say that's not just an opinion, that's a fact. The mainstream news is slow, and not only that, they are wildly service level and inaccurate on most things. And not only that, a lot of the YouTube channels that are in this category as well, which I will criticize heavily, are extremely low effort, and they're so full of themselves, it's sickening. They will only copy exactly what the mainstream news says and then repeat it word for word on their channel, and they will do absolutely no effort themselves to try and find new information or new sources. They just try and ride the coattails of mainstream news stories and people possibly wanting to learn more, and then just recording themselves repeating that lame crap and then putting it out on air for people to watch. We actually try and get additional information on this channel, and we actually do a lot of research and effort. And I hate when people don't give us the notch of credibility I feel like we're kind of owed at this point, because we actually do a lot of work and effort trying to figure the stuff out. You know, when we report on something, it's not fake, it's not clickbait. I mean, it's true. Like, our title tonight is entirely true. NATO did appear to shoot down Russian drones. It did appear that ground fire came from Romania, from a Gepard that was shooting down Shaheds over Ukraine. And then we also heard from the Russian Ministry of Defense that they are setting up a large amount of field hospitals across the area of the western region of the Russian Federation, which does appear that they're preparing for a mass casualty event. So going off of that, the title is 100% accurate. Yeah, it's in all caps. Like, you have to do that to be able to get people in here to watch, but beyond that, the title's entirely true. We put effort into this stuff. I don't know why people don't give us some credence for that and go, okay, well, maybe all of the other channels are low effort and suck and they don't even have any kind of brains behind them, but at least the enforcers put in a lot of effort into at least vetting their stories and their news. Like, I wish people would give us a little bit more credit on that than we get sometimes from some random people. But still, I got to think.
Also, you want a new piece of breaking news, by the way? Speaking of breaking news coming out and how we're so quick to it and stuff like that, you want to hear this big story? This has to do with El Mayo, by the way.
Oh, really? What do we got?
So I'm seeing here on Twitter, it looks like Ovidio Guzman Lopez, who's the son of a drug kingpin and former leader of the Sinaloa cartel, El Chapo, who was arrested by Mexican authorities and extradited to the United States in September of 2023. It appears he might have been released from prison alongside several other former members of the Sinaloa cartel. And this could be rumored to be part of a plea bargain agreed to by the son of El Chapo for his assistance in the arrest of El Mayo, who's the really big guy, the really big kingpin, and also associate of the Sinaloa. So this could be maybe some snitching going on here. I'm not really sure if this is an exact credible story, but that's the rumor going around right now, that there was a plea bargain, and that's why El Mayo got caught up and arrested in Texas. That's the rumor at the moment.
Interesting. That would be really something. Man, El Chapo's son has a target right on his forehead if he actually did that, because they're not going to let him live turning in.
Yeah.
You know, like, that doesn't, like, that would be a really stupid move by him, because they're obviously going to kill him at this point.
Probably so. And, you know, if they, and the way the cartel works, if they can't get to you, they'll come for your family. They do that every single time. It's their playbook. So, you know, his family might be in danger if they can't get to him, which, you know, I'm not sure how it works, because I believe he's a Mexican national. I don't think he's a U.S. citizen. So I don't know if he's able to get witness protection or something like that if he did tell on the El Mayo guy. But whatever the case is, he's in trouble, or his family's in trouble at this point, if this is indeed true. But once again, we need more confirmation on it to know if it's actually, you know, a concrete story or not. But that appears to be the very strong information at the moment.
Man, it sounded like El Chapo's son said, lift the sentence, hold the mayo. It sounds like he... Bro, I had to do it, man. I had to do it. But anyways, it's very interesting breaking news right there. We'll have to see what kind of drama unfolds. Dude, what if we became the the cartel drama alert. Like, we made a video, El Chapo's son betrayed El Mayo. Like, what if we started doing that? That would be pretty
Something
weird.
that could be dangerous.
That would probably be pretty dangerous. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here goes to Robert Harrington, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Robert, as well, for that support. He says, keep up that great work, and take a question from the chat, and LOC.
And you know we're going to keep that great work up. You know it. And I got to say, thank you so much for the support, Robert Harrington. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army. And so, with that, I got to say, what do we got, man? What's going on out there? What do we got?
So this live chat question right here, and also good night to BC Skyman as well. He's leaving for the night. And also, I don't know why I'm not able to talk tonight. I'm just like all over the place with my words. But good night, BC Skyman, and thank you very much for being here once again. And this live chat question goes to Her Fluffiness, who says, is shooting down incoming explodey stuff actually, quote-unquote, aggressive action against the Russian Federation? I'm asking for a friend.
And then they said, guess not. I guess not. But to answer your question, that is actually a really interesting question. Yes, it's considered actually a bit of a provocative action a little bit, or an aggressive action. And I'll actually give you a little bit of a story from history people don't know that happened. During World War II, Switzerland was a neutral country, and over the course of the war, they ended up shooting down a pretty okay amount of German aircraft that ended up veering over Swiss airspace. They would shoot them down, like over Switzerland. And so the Germans eventually said, if you don't stop that, we're going to invade you. And then they kind of stopped and would allow the German bombers to fly over a little bit. But not that much longer after that, American bombers ended up veering over a little bit into Swiss airspace, and the Swiss started shooting down American bombers. Like, people don't know this. This actually happened a lot during the war, not only to Germany, but to America and Britain as well. And it ended up being a bit of a deal, because while the Swiss were only ensuring their neutrality, they were running the risk of these actions being considered aggressive actions, although technically everyone was violating their airspace, and having further retaliations taken against them. Although in Switzerland's perspective, and this is a very fair perspective from their end, they're just protecting their airspace from other nations, other parties outside of Switzerland that are involved in a major conflict, and they're trying to avoid possible bombings of their own citizenry, which, by the way, did happen. The Germans accidentally bombed a Swiss town near to the French border, and also America did as well a couple of times. Well, both sides actually did that a couple of times, but nevertheless, it was still taken as aggressive actions, both by the Germans and also by America as well. So while it's not a aggressive action, like outwardly trying to provoke something, even defensive actions like that, like shooting down a Russian drone, can be construed as aggressive actions. And the Swiss example during World War II is a fairly good a kind of an example to work off of right there. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one. But a very good question. I hope I was able to address that well with a good historic example.
Yes, indeed. And with that, we're moving on to our next super chat. And this one goes to Smarzig, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Smarzig, for that support. He said, whatever happened to Naria?
That's a good question.
Guess what? Naria is still here. I saw Naria yesterday and actually spoke to her in the live chat. Or not the live chat, but the comment section of one of my videos. So she's still here. Just laying low, I guess. Some people like to lurk after a while. They'll talk in the live chat. They'll also donate to the fundraisers. And sometimes people decide to lurk. So I guess Naria has decided to lurk. I hope Naria comes back out sometime, though, because we enjoyed having her on the stream and also the fundraisers as well. But that is where Naria is, still here. But thank you very much, Marzig. And Enforcer, what say you?
I was about to say, that's a great question. I was about to say, she's a lurker, because I saw that too. But there's a couple of lurkers, actually. Like Mark, the incompetent drone operator, he is a lurker. He still watches the channel. We just know that he's lurking. Jesus UCSB, he's still watching the channel, but he's a lurker now. There's a decent amount of people who don't show up in the live chat anymore. They're still here. They still watch the streams, but they're lurkers now, so you don't really get to see them a lot anymore. It's kind of sad. We hope that they eventually come back out of being a lurker and are active in the live chat and active in the LSA, but a couple of them have ended up becoming lurkers, Naria being one of them. But man, Naria used to be the complete opposite of a lurker. I mean, they would throw in tens of thousands of dollars to the fundraisers that we used to run back at the beginning of the war, and that was insane, Matthew. Remember that one night that Mark and Narya got into like almost like that bidding competition on the fundraiser?
Oh
We got up to
yeah.
like 30 grand. That was crazy. I mean, that was insane. But yeah, Narya is still here. Narya isn't gone. It's just that Narya is now a lurker. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, Matthew, I like how he came up with like a nickname for the folks who used to always be active, and then they just kind of sit back and watch now, and they're called lurkers, and everyone just knows what the lurkers are. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well, Smarzik, and I hope that does answer your question well too. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Cyprian00, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Cyprian, for your support as well. They said, I appreciate the news you both continue to provide us. And thank you very much for the kind words, Cyprian. We both love putting out the news out there. We love doing the videos and the stream as well. And of course, we appreciate y'all for watching the news as well, because without y'all being here to watch it, it wouldn't be around. So y'all make it possible, and we appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, we appreciate you being here as well, Cyprian. And I gotta say, I thank you so much for the kind words. The super chat segment, I'll tell you this, Cyprian. I always find this to be so funny sometimes that they hit me again. The super chat segment used to always be people asking questions about the war. They would put in a $20 super chat and say, what about this and that? Or what about this? Or what about that? And it was nothing but questions about the war. And so it was actually like a question segment. Nowadays, it's like the thank you segment. Everyone throws in the super chat and they say, thank you so much for running the show. And I got to say, either way, we are very happy to get to talk to y'all, whether y'all have questions or whether y'all just enjoy the show. And I got to say, thank you so much, Cyprian 00, for enjoying this channel and really helping it to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you who supported the channel, we wouldn't be able to be here every single day. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much for being a part of helping us to keep this channel running and keep the news rolling, so that way people can keep on enjoying and appreciating it as much as we enjoy and appreciate getting to tell it to y'all. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Made in Canada 182, puts in a 20 Canadian, and thank you very much, Made in Canada, for that support. And most importantly, they said it's their birthday, and also
happy
huge
birthday
to Made in Canada 182. And they said take one from the chat on me, and long live the LSA.
And happy birthday, Made in Canada 182. You and Matthew almost have similar birthdays, and I gotta say, but still, I gotta say, I hope you had a great one, Made in Canada 182, and I hope that you're still having a great one. I hope this is like a little bit of an icing on the cake. Hopefully it's not like the worst part of your birthday, but still, I thank you so much once again for being here with us on your birthday. What a day. I bet it's been a really fun one, and we will make sure to take one from the chat on you, a birthday live chat. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army. And what do we have, Matthew?
All right, so this live chat question, sponsored by Made in Canada. Excuse me, goodness. This one goes to Lecheno. And also, good night to Kimberly Brokaw, by the way, leaving for the night. Good night to you as well. And the question from Lecheno says, weaponized Yamaha jet ski with 2 warheads was found on a Turkish beach, and they're believed to be Ukrainian. And what does that mean for the Sea Baby project? Also, I did see that, by the way. Look at, there it is right there. Look at that. It's got, look at, also, by the way, is that like a night vision marine camera on top of that thing?
I think
These
so.
parts look like they're like stuff from a regular like boat store.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? I mean, it's literally just a Sea-Doo. Like, you can even see like the control stick is still there.
It's just all retrofitted with like some type of remote control, like servos and things like that. And also, obviously, the massive explosives that are on the thing. They're pretty brave to get right next to it like this, probably with it armed, to take a picture of it.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty brave. But from what I understand, it's not going to affect anything of the Sea Baby project. The Turks probably are just going to return it to Ukraine or just keep it. They'll probably impound it, actually. But impound a live bomb. They're probably going to get the sappers out there, the EOD people. They'll defuse it, and then they'll impound it. But beyond that, I don't really think it's going to be changing much, but it is pretty wild to see a little Sea Baby. This is like one of the cheapest Sea Babies. This isn't like one of those super outfitted, really hyper technologically advanced Sea Babies, you know, that they make. This is like one of the base model Sea Babies, the quick improvised ones that they used to make at the beginning of the war. So I don't think anything's really going to happen to the Sea Baby program because of this little incident. But with that, I hope that does address that live chat well. I also forgot to talk about that in the news, but yeah, that did happen. And with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Live, Laugh, Toast Your Bath, who puts in a $15 donation. And thank you very much for your support once again. They said, good evening to you, enforcers, and good evening to you.
Hello.
And they said, I'm curious to know what contribution has been made by Australia in terms of military and financial aid to Ukraine. And also, YouTube wouldn't allow me to donate on Sunday night. And LSA, can I have Marmot?
Hello there. Would you like a plum? Let's go get it. Let's go grab him. Oh, hello there.
Hey, it's Alan. Welcome
Alan.
back, Alan. It's been a good minute, sir. Welcome back, sir. The tooth at the top has got to shave down even further. It's a pain. What an overbite he has. But it's okay. Alan's okay.
Oh, hello there.
Say something, Alan. Say something.
I'd like to say that the stream is sponsored by the viewers or something. I don't know. Hell, shouldn't why? Oh man, me and my 300 live viewers are talking about American politics. So partisan, so violent, so visceral. Oh man.
Oh man. Oh, can you believe this? By the way, the Fly, the hot dog man, had the audacity to say that NATO is not fighting Russia. Can you believe that?
I can't. I just I'll tell you, I can't really.
It's like, obviously NATO's not on the ground. Like, it's obvious. Like, that's Russian propaganda to say that NATO soldiers are fighting inside of Ukraine. That's bullcrap. But at the same time, it's like, it's obvious at this point, the objective in the West, and it's a good objective, we're using Ukraine for a dual use. We're trying to help Ukraine win, and we're also using Ukraine to wear down the Russians and their equipment. That's been well known for a long time. And apparently he's ignorant to that, which kind of goes to show his lack of knowledge about the whole situation, because he doesn't even see that. And he thinks that's Russian propaganda to even suggest that the United States is trying to wear down the Russians. That's the whole damn point. It's like, why are we so invested in it if we're not getting some benefit out of it?
Aw, man, I don't really know what the hell I'm talking about. You know, something I realized, man, it hit me after, like, listening to that one other guy, you know, not Hot Dog Man, but that other guy that we listened to that said, the Russians are throwing people at Ukraine, and Ukraine is fighting back. And that was like the first 2 minutes of the video was literally just him saying that in more colorful language. I sat there and realized I think every single person who's been who runs a YouTube channel, who has been a detractor of our channel, trying to say we don't know what we're talking about, says that because they're scared that if we keep talking and they don't try and put us down, they're going to look stupid because they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's just crazy though, man, because especially Hot Dog Man. It's like, I never do this, by the way. I don't brag about anything of myself. I don't like bragging and stuff
Someone's
like that.
Someone's going to put a compilation together. But okay. Like,
but if we really look at the stuff right here, Hot Dog Man he's got the high school diploma. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, it's like, I actually went to school for political science, international relations, and foreign policy. I graduated with honors, summa cum laude. So it's like, you know, I'm not saying my opinion is more valuable than anyone else's, but at the same time, it's like, I've actually studied like the things that we're talking about here, like for 4 years. So for him to say, oh, they're so stupid, it's like, well, dude, I've actually like gone through the trouble and all the hard work to get the degree in it. So it's like, you have not. So it's like, your opinion can be your opinion over there, but it's like, don't claim that we're stupid about the situation. Because I think most people can see, it's like, Hot Dog Man has no clue what he's talking about, but he tries to get on there and be really opinionated. So that way it sounds like, oh, I got to be right because I'm so opinionated. I'm being loud and I'm being obnoxious, so I must be correct. But it's like, he's using all that bravado to cover up his lack of knowledge, really.
Dude, they all do that, man. Hello. I am going to talk today about the war. And then he, like, talks about it in the most broad and generalized sense. It's like, you don't really know how a military works, do you? You just say crap, like, you know, and expect that people will think you're right because you say it in such an arrogant way. It's like, you know, that's something that I think I've started to realize a lot recently about, you know, all these folks, because I'm like, dang, it's like, they don't really know what they're talking about. Like, you know, like for example, that one guy, it's like, you know, like he starts talking about, and there's good news for Ukraine. It's like, what? You know, it's like, and then he talks about F-16s. they're going to be a game changer. It's like, are you just repeating the crap that you're reading off of like CNN or something, or are you actually going to like tell people why? Like, you know, I'll tell y'all why. Like when I say the F-16 is going to be a game changer, I'll tell y'all because they're able to conduct anti-radiation missions, which are called SEED missions, far more effectively because the F-16 is made to do something like that, or in something along those lines. I'll tell y'all something like that, and then give y'all a big framework of how that will fit into the bigger picture of the war. Or when we talk about geodiplomacy, or geopolitics as people call it, I will tell y'all all the details and, you know, tell y'all about the little piece and how the little piece is working, and then try and put it together into the big piece and explain the whole big piece picture and how that little piece fits into it. And I'll go into all the detail I can about that and rabbit hole on it as long as I need to get that across, at least my opinion on it. And then all these other people, they don't do that. You know, like they just say like the talking head points, but they don't really know what they're talking about. That's one thing that you'll find out a lot, actually, is that a lot of the people who talk the loudest have absolutely no idea of what they're talking about. Like, you know, and of course, we could be one of those people. I'm sure someone will come by and best us eventually, but that hasn't happened yet. But still, yeah, that's something with the hot dog man. And also the hot dog man, dude, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, because he sits there and says, "Oh man," you know, and I mean this in the most respectful way, but it's also honest as well. "Oh man, I was an E5 in the army, and I know everything about the army because I served in the army." It's like, you were a truck driver. It's like, you know, what was that, 88 Bravo, something like that? You know, it's like that's not your job to know everything about the army. Your job in the army was to shift the gears on the truck and drive it from point A to point B. It's like just because someone served doesn't mean they're going to know everything about the military, because much like the civilian world, in the military, there are specialized jobs. That's just part of Adam Smith's division of labor. That's just basic concept of the modern industrialized world, is that people are going to be specialized in a specific thing, and that's it. So just because you're a baker doesn't mean you can also talk about nuclear physics, and just because you were in the army as a truck driver doesn't mean you know about army group level strategies and doctrines and tactics. You don't, like, that's not something that you just acquire because you stood around it. That's like Matthew me saying, "We drove up to Browns Ferry nuclear power plant, we looked at it, therefore we are certified nuclear physicists." It's like, no, that's not how it works. Yeah, we were around it. That doesn't mean we know anything more about it. I mean, still, nuclear power, beyond the very basic fundamental level of knowledge that we have, is still an enigma and an absolute wonder to Matthew me. We really don't know exactly how it works, but I have a lot of faith in it. You know, and I'll be honest with that. So, you know, that's something that I see a lot out there nowadays, is a lot of people who are very ignorant on what they're talking about, but they say it in such a arrogant way that they try and exude some kind of a level of confidence to make people believe that they actually know what they're talking about, because otherwise they don't have the knowledge to actually confidently talk about something. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Also, you're taking my life set. Dude was a truck driver in the army, but he doesn't know how to drive a stick. That's the thing. Like, that's the thing. Yeah, because,
wait, for real?
Yeah, do you not know this, Matthew? All modern military trucks actually do not have manual gears. Most modern military vehicles are automatic transmissions, and they don't even make it complex. Like on most military vehicles, the gear shifter is literally forward, neutral, and reverse. Those are your three options. That's it.
But they don't train on manual, though? Like, I know they may not use it every day, but they don't at least train on it?
I think that's some sort of specialized training these days. I don't think you get that in just normal heavy vehicle training anymore.
Well, that's kind of wild. Yeah, I thought like it was like normal like trucker knowledge, like in the civilian world and the military world, to like learn manual and automatic.
Let me go see. U.S. Army gear shifter. Let me just see if I can find you a picture of this, because I'm sure someone out there.
Thank God it's automatic, though, because our crap would have never gotten anywhere with Hot Dog Man driving. He could barely shift into second.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let me go see that Humvee gear shifter. Let me show you what it looks like. So let's see here. Hang on, I need to go find the automatic one, because when the Humvee was first introduced, I don't think they had automatic gear shifters, but later on they did. Let's see. Let me just go type this in. Maybe this will be a quicker way to find it. U.S. Army forklift transmission, because they're like the heavy forklifts that are actually like tractors. Let me see if I... Dang, dude, they don't have pictures of these easy at all. But on most military vehicles, literally the only options are, and it's not even like an actual like gear shifter stick like you would find in an automatic car. It's literally like a little light switch, and it says forward, neutral, and reverse on it. And you just flick the little light switch around, and that's what changes the gear shifter.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. I guess that's easier for the folks to drive. Definitely, the only way Hot Dog Man would be able to cut 88 Mike was to do that.
Yeah, and
with
so
automatic.
and so like heavy vehicle training doesn't even include gear shifting in it. It's literally just okay, get in the truck. Here's how you drive forward. Here's how you drive reverse. It's a bigger vehicle, so look out for these things. You're not in a small car. There you go. You're 88 Bravo. It's like come on, and then
88 Mike.
And then 88 Mike. Yeah, there you go. 88 Bravo, 88 Mike, whatever. But well, I say whatever, but that's actually a really big difference. But beyond that, and then because of that, and also quite clearly, like I don't know. I mean, how someone carries themselves as a person says a lot. Guy's very low effort. Everyone can tell that. So this guy wants me to believe, this low effort person who puts no effort into life, that he was a truck driver in the Army and therefore he knows about Army group tactics. It's like, you can't make me believe that. Like, it's like I know you didn't, your lazy ass didn't pick up a book and read about it. So you know less about it than I do. It doesn't matter whether you were in the Army or not at that point. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And moving on to our next super chat here, we have a $20 donation from Uncle Sam's Misguided Child. And man, this child is misguided, I'm telling you what. But it put in a $20 donation. And just kidding, by the way, just kidding. And thank you very much for the support. He said, facts. And the stream is real and true. And thank you. They put in the praying sign, the Ukraine sign, and the big fist.
And I gotta say, thank you for the support, Uncle Sam's Misguided Child. And I gotta say, thank you for saying that the stream is real and true. I mean, hopefully the stream is real. Bro, that's valid, on God, that's valid. And I also gotta say, thank you for saying it's true. We try our best to be true. Sometimes we do get some fallacies in here and there, but we still try and make it as accurate as we possibly can. No one's perfect, but we strive to be as factually correct as we can be. But still, I gotta say, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for enjoying it and helping it to keep on being a possibility for this channel to live on well on into the future. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to, guess who? Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a $22 donation, and Margaret is driving. So I hope you can hear this, Margaret. And she said, hit the like button and take a live chat question, please.
And thank you so much for the support, Margaret Hemsley. Drive safely. Don't watch the stream while you're driving, please. I would hate to know that you got in an accident. But beyond that, thank you so much for enjoying this stream. Thank you so much for watching, always being here. You're an old guard of this channel through and through. Folks know your name from all around here in the Lee Spring Army, and we will make sure to take a live chat in your honor. But still, huge thanks for you being here with us tonight, and I hope you've been enjoying the stream so far. And so, what do we got, Matthew, for a live chat?
And this one goes to Calvin Duke. He says, do y'all think that Putin will stay in office after the war's over?
It really depends on how the Russians in the war, whether it be, however it ends, it really weighs in on that. If they lose, I don't think he's going to be in office that much longer, because there will probably be enough of an upset in the Russian government to shift the balance of power to someone else who will climb the ladder and take the position of president of Russia until they die or until they're overthrown. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again, Margaret Hemsley, for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, real quick, by the way, I just saw this as well on Twitter. Apparently, there's another Russian naval flotilla which is scheduled to arrive at the port of Havana sometime between July 27th, which is just a few days away, and the 30th. And at this time, it looks like the flotilla will consist of a Smolny-class training ship, as well as a frigate and an oil replenishment ship, and also one other vessel as well. So, very interesting. It might follow the exact same path as the flotilla that happened last month, from the sounds of it. So, very interesting to hear. I did not know that another flotilla was on the way. And let me retweet that real quick. Yeah, that quick, that's kind of shocking to hear. I would like to see confirmation of that. And this post is from OSINT Defender, by the way. So it looks like it's probably legit, but I would like to see some confirmation because that's a very fast follow-up. considering how soon it was. They just did it a short while ago.
Sounds like they're transporting something in pieces to Cuba.
That could be it because, an oil replenishment ship. What was the other one? Let's see here. What was
A training
the other
ship, and then there was a frigate.
Yeah, they could be transporting something. It sounds kind of like that.
Yeah, because you have the one flotilla that arrives. It had a Yasin-class submarine, and then it had a frigate with it. I forgot the frigate. It was like the Admiral Grigorovich class, I believe. And then they have another flotilla. This one does not have a submarine, but this one is more auxiliary-based. Like, they have one frigate, and then they have auxiliaries. Sounds to me like they are trying to move something into Cuba in bits and pieces, bringing pieces of it at a time to Cuba and probably assembling it on site. Who knows what it is? But that is very interesting here. It could be listening posts like the PLA listening posts in Cuba, or it could be a missile launch site. It could be anything. Like, we don't know. But I would say that really deserves a lot more attention from the CIA and other intelligence organizations to see if we can find out what is on these ships. Because one thing that I need to mention right here is that while these ships aren't exactly like, extremely large auxiliaries that can just carry whatever, a frigate has a helicopter hangar on it and a helicopter pad. And while that's not the perfect cargo carrying area, you could fit stuff into a helicopter landing deck. Well, not landing deck, a helicopter hangar on the frigate and carry it to Cuba pretty much completely concealed and then offload it in Havana. So that kind of begs the question a little bit. Are they trying to move something piece by piece into Havana or really into Cuba at large at this point? And what is it? So hopefully the U.S. government and the U.S. Department of Defense can be on top of that and see if there's a possibility that these aren't just normal transits. This is trying to transport equipment and other kinds of resources into Cuba. But with that,
they sure are testing us here recently, like with the flights around Alaska, with the joint China and Russia flights, the multiple flotillas passing right by the coast of Florida going to Cuba to do God knows what down there. They're definitely testing us quite significantly here in the recent months or so. And really, honestly, if I had to take a stab at it, this is probably going to increase in the coming months just because of the tensions rising and also other factors as well, which we really can't get into. It probably will rise. So hopefully it stays limited, but I really doubt it.
You know what I would do in response to this is I would send a carrier task force into the North Sea to conduct, along with other NATO partners, a joint military exercise conducting anti-ship and anti-submarine operations within the Baltic Sea. That would be a very interesting thing to do, and that would start to send a little bit of a similar message that the Russians seem to be trying to send to us right now with the Cubans. But with that, I hope that kind of gives my way in on what I would do as a response to that if we're doing a tit for tat here. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to, let's see here. It's going to go to DJ Waffle, who puts in a $15 donation. And huge shout out to you, DJ Waffle, for that support as well. He said, lurking and working, and I love the content, guys. And also, by the way, huge shout out to you, DJ Waffle. And also, Enforcer, I'm going to be right back in a second. I'm going to go get something to drink because my throat is so dry right now. I think that's what's causing me to get choked up. So I'll be back in literally like 30 seconds.
Is your throat hurting from it?
No, not hurting. It's just I'm like a dry throat right now. I'm trying to talk. I'm like grating on like a cheese grater right now. So yeah. I'll be back.
Oh, I understand completely. But still, I gotta say, hey, thank you so much for supporting DJ Waffle. And we got an American lacquer here. And I gotta say, very good to know that you're still lurking and working, DJ Waffle. We'd love to know that you're working. You gotta work hard these days, especially in this kind of a world. It's a tough one to get by in. But still, I gotta say thank you so much once again for lurking and working, and continue to watch this stream, and thank you so much for loving the content. We try our best to be able to make sure to keep this news running 6 days a week, every single day, hell or high water, and to keep on getting the news out to each and every one of y'all. And I gotta thank you so much, DJ Wall, for being one of those folks, and enjoying the stream, and helping us to keep it running, and helping it to be possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are now moving on to the next one, which is actually from Cliff H. And Cliff H threw in a 12. Hey! And he said, I suggest a side project. Make a short scripted animation featuring Marmot and other recurring voices and characters. Go crazy. You know, that would be a pretty funny idea, Cliff H. And yeah, the Marmot. Cliff H wants a Marmot skit. Now, I would not put that on the main channel because I wouldn't want to throw people off who are here for like war for some reason, and they see the Marmot and the Fly, and they're like, what the hell is that? I would probably put that somewhere on Patreon if we ever did something like that, because I think that would be hilarious. Really, really good. Like, we could just do what we do on stream, but Maddie and me could record it and like do whatever, and then throw it up on Patreon. That would be hilarious. And I think that's actually not that bad of an idea, Cliff H. Thank you for a pretty good idea right there. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, I'm doing so much better now. I must say, having a good drink. I got this Arizona green tea thing right here, which I've recently really gotten addicted to. Very good stuff right there. And it's also very good to wet your whistle when you're talking, because otherwise you sit there grating on your vocal cords and stuff. But anyways, jumping on to our next super chat here. This one goes to John Garner. He puts in a $10 donation and says,
Hey!
send it.
And send it, baby. And also, thank you so much for the support, John Garner. I saw that come in right before the artillery shell was fired at the beginning of the video in the M777, where they go, the LSA sends its regards. And so, the Lee Spring Army sends its regards. You know, something like that. That's how the video goes. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Paul Gill. He puts in a 10 and says, thank you, enforcers. From me and my wife, Irina, who has a family still in Ukraine. And P.S., you guys are really funny, too.
Hey, and thank you so much for saying that, Paul. Like, that's something that has always been a little bit contended. Some people say we're really funny. Others say we're not funny. Comedy is subjective. Like, you know, we don't really try to be comedians per se, but we do try and make it light and joke around and get some laughs going for everyone, because wouldn't that suck if you were just in a crying fest all day, every day, like Hot Dog Man or really anyone else out there? Welcome back, Defenders. Crying here. Next bitchin', or something like that. But I'd have to say, I'm happy that we don't make it a crying fest, because whether you cry or you laugh through it, the war will still go on every single day. And so, you know, why not just try and get through it the best we can with the highest spirits we can, because it's going to be happening either way. And so, I gotta say, thank you so much once again for enjoying our humor. That's something that is very nice of you to say. And also, thank you so much for you and your wife, Irina, for enjoying the Irina. I said Irina. What the hell am I talking about? Irina, for supporting this channel and enjoying it and wanting it to keep on running, because y'all actually make it possible for us to be on air each and every day. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Yes, indeed. And also, by the way, I see, also Ricky Chaos actually has our next super chat, by the way. But real quick, I saw something he said in the live chat. He said, Arizona tea sting at 99 cents is what convinced me that inflation is fabricated. You know, honestly, that's what made me try the Arizona tea. And actually, I really like it. The green tea one, that's actually very good. But I heard the guy talking about how he will not raise the price on the tea because he doesn't want to screw over people to get his drink. And I was like, what? An honest business person in 2024? I got to go get this guy's drink. And it was actually really, really good. So I'm glad I tried it. But that is crazy. Only 99 cents for that in the modern day. That if it was from any other company, that would be like $2 or $3 for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be crazy priced. But you can get the whole can of it for like 99 cents, which is insane. I really like that. But anyways, Ricky Chaos also put in a $10 donation. And thank you very much for the support. He said, have a beer on me, gentlemen.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for wanting us to have a beer. I mean, maybe we'll have a beer one day. What's crazy is that Matthew is now 24 and I'm 22. And we have not touched alcohol in any large form at all. And, you know, and it's crazy to think about that. But still, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running. Maybe one day we will have a beer. And if we do, it'll be on you. And so with that, thank you so much for the kindness of you that you've shown us. Thank you so much for the kindness you've shown us. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kid Rock 966, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Kid Rock, for the support. He said, hello, enforcers. Kid Rock here. Coffee fund and long live the LSA.
Welcome back, enforcers. Kid Rock here.
Oh.
Coffee fund. I think that's what it was supposed to be. But beyond that,
welcome back, Defenders. Matt here.
Welcome.
I sound so wrong.
Welcome back, Defenders. Someone here. I went on a show today. It was a show involving a washed-up British news reporter who usually is known for getting in fights with everyone. And I got in a fight with him, and it kind of shocked me that he'd do that to me. I thought I was his sweet little beloved, or something like that.
Oh.
Oh man, like what would you expect going on someone's show that is literally known for stirring the pot on everything and just trying to piss people off or corral them and beat them up? Why in the world would you be flustered when that happens to you? It's like you kind of that's like Jeffrey Dahmer inviting you in for a drink. It's like, are you not expecting to get murdered? It's like, it's Jeffrey Dahmer. It's his nature to do something like that. You know, like that was so dumb. It's like you're setting yourself up for an ambush and then you're shocked that you're ambushed. It's like, come on, you gotta do better than that, you know. But anyways, beyond that, so people see what we're talking about. Yeah, and you know, like y'all see what I'm talking about because I'm explaining it so succinctly. Like, you know, that would be like us going on Tucker Carlson's show. Like, obviously we're going to get ambushed. I would just refuse to go on the show, like, because no matter how it's going to be, how good we are at arguing a point, whether we're good or not, that's up to y'all. But whether we're good or not, we're going to get on that show, and he's either going to edit it where we look like an idiot by the end of it, or he's going to make sure to try and overtalk us so that way we can't get out a good point if we are making good points, and then we'll still look like an idiot anyways. So that's kind of like, if we accepted an invite like that, that's kind of like accepting being ambushed, and then we get off air and we start crying about how we got ambushed. It's like, you can't do that. Like, you took the risk, you got what the danger was, you can't really complain. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Kid Rock. We will make sure to get a coffee. And thank you for supporting the Coffee Fund and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the kind words of supporting this channel.
Indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from John Garner. And he put in the Al-Asaf with 3 penguins behind it.
Hey!
And thank you very much, John.
And thank you so much for the support, John Garner. Thank you for the $20 super chat and the support to this channel. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Neil Vizanant, who puts in a $10 donation.
Hey!
He says, the FBI got El Mayo. Chris's mom is depressed that her BF is in jail.
Oh.
Now that she can't get... whoa. This is...
Oh, no!
I can't say this. But thank you very much, Neil, for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Dude, I just read that, man. I just read that right there, and this was my reaction. I was like, we can't read that, dude. But still, thank you so much for the support, Neil. I gotta say, you're putting out the Chris's mom jokes these days, and they are homicides. They're gonna get the cops up in here to launch an official investigation into that. Like, someone else is apparently launching an internal investigation right now, if y'all know what I'm talking about. Oh my. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Neil. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Andy L., who puts in a $10 donation. He said, or instead of, let's see, what was the other one he said? It was L something.
L Brisket.
L Brisket. He said, should my new name be L Baby Back Ribs?
And I gotta say, Andy L., you're making me hungry. I'm kind of hungry right now. You're like, L Brisket, L Baby Bag of Ribs. Next thing, Matthew, he's going to be saying L Braised Brief. And I'm going to be like, damn it. I'm starving here.
Braised Brief.
Braised Brief. It's like beef, but with a piece of reef in it. It's braised brief. But beyond that, I got to say, thank you so much for the support. And I would say any of that would be good. You know, Matthew, what I'm having a hankering for right now? I'm having a hankering for those Chinese bao dumplings. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah, those things are good. I really want one of those. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support, Andy L. I hope that does address that well. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And I like L Baby Back Ribs, but honestly, L Brisket, to me, I like that a little bit better. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to John Garner, who puts in a $10 donation. He says, we choose you because you're the best. You're the best, Jerry. You're the best.
The best, Jerry. The best. You're killing it, Jerry. Killing it. Gold, Jerry. It's gold. But beyond that, I got to say, thank you so much for the support, John Garner. And thank you for saying you choose us because we're the best. We're not the best, but I will say, when you got the competition like we do, it's really easy to float to the top. So I would say that we're not the best out there, but with our competition, it's very easy to look like we're the best, although we aren't. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep it running. And also, Matty, I see Greg Troublemaker's putting out some of that channel lore down there in the live chat. I'm like, you remember? But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, John Ghana. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Warren Edgar Gillespie. And thank you very much, Warren, for that support. He says, Slav Ukraine, Slav LSA, and thanks, fellas.
I gotta say, thank you for the support, Warren Edgar Gillespie. And I gotta say, Slav Ukraine, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you so much for enjoying this channel and supporting it so that way we can keep it running and keep the flag of the Lee Spring Army flying high. And I gotta say this, Matthew, I think it's really cool. Like, it's become a fact of the matter that in our intro, when the Ukrainian anthem is playing and is rounding out, it shows the flag of the LSA, and then literally our entire outro is the flag of the LSA now. It is so cool to think that that is just kind of like a fact of the channel now. Like, it's a symbol of the Lee Spring Army. It's a symbol of the culture of this channel, and it's so cool to think that we actually have a actual flag. Like, it hit me again. We actually have a real flag to say that y'all help us to support this channel and keep it running so that way the flags of the Lee Spring Army can fly high around every corner of the globe, because they are literally in every corner of the globe right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next two super chats are going to go to Dave Heron and also Rob S. They each put in a $10 donation and said LSA. Hey! And I agree 100%. LSA, that's what makes it all possible, and that's why we're all here. So huge shout out to all of you, including Dave and Rob, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you to both of y'all for the support, Dave Heron and Rob S. Y'all help us to keep this channel running, and of course, the Lee Spring Army is absolutely incredible. I got to thank y'all so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I see a lot of people saying that they love their LSA flags. And I got to say, they are beautiful. They were incredibly well made. I don't know how well the gold Sharpie is holding up on some of them, though. I heard that apparently some people put them out in the sun and it got rained on as well, and the Sharpie eventually kind of faded away a little bit. So make sure to, take care of them. But another thing that I was thinking about is re-releasing the flags. Like, we've talked about that a little bit in the background, and we know that many of y'all still want to get an LSA flag, and y'all didn't get a chance to get one, so we were considering a re-release, and we're also considering whether all of them will be autographed or not, because I said that we'll only do the first batch as autographed. We're thinking of maybe charging extra possibly for an autograph flag, because it really, it almost destroyed my hand doing it the first time for as many flags that we had to do. It was like a nightmare for like a whole week and a half of doing like dozens of flags. Actually, it was like 100 flags every day, and it cramped my hand so bad by the end of it, it was insane. So either we're going to charge extra or we're just not going to do it at all. With the signature side of things. But we are considering re-releasing the flag so that way a whole bunch of other folks can have the flag of the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again to both of y'all once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Sully Canuck, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Sully, for the support. He said, I love your news, lads, and take one from the chat. And thank you for liking the news, by the way. Like I said, we love putting it out.
And I gotta say, thank you to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Sully Connect. Thank you for loving the news and loving the lads. And we will make sure to take a live chat question. So what do we got, Matthew?
So this one is going to go to, let's see here, Troy Fox. He says, what say you about the FBI saying that there's a threat of a coordinated attack on the U.S. in the near future from some terror folks?
They usually say that kind of stuff, and it doesn't happen. But usually they say that because they have a credible threat. So I would say it's probably a legitimate concern, but usually the follow-through by these terrorist groups is usually pretty lackluster. So while they may have a legitimate concern, there's still a chance it may not happen. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat at least the best I can. And I thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I saw K-Dub Janky saying the live chat. He said the enforcers are awesome. Humor plus truth plus evidence-based data. And corporate news is propaganda. Corporate news sucks. It really does. It sucks out there. And I don't even see them covering the news. For example, about El Chapo's son potentially turning on people and stuff like that. I didn't even see that on the news today. No coverage whatsoever of this or anything else about Romania, Ukraine, Russia. All you hear is politics, politics, politics. And nobody wants to hear that 24/7. People want to hear the news because it's not about being a political hack. It's about, getting the news from a news channel. But they're not news anymore. The corporate media is just turned into a cesspool, really.
Wait a minute, man. We gotta make fun of individuals at this point. You got Wolf Blitzer on CNN who looks like he's about to burst out crying every night at this point. I don't know why. He just looks like
You
he's
see
about
him
to.
throw up on air?
Yeah, I think I did, but he always looks like he's about to cry. Don't you notice that? Like, he's always like glassy eyed, like tearing up a little. He sounds like he's choking up all the time. And then you got Sean Hannity on the other end who sits there and he's like, "Hello, we have a special guest tonight. We have Enforcer Matt." And Enforcer Matt, I was just wanting to say, and then the guest doesn't even talk during the entire segment, and it's just Sean Hannity just throwing whatever he wants on them, just throwing it out as what they're saying and monologuing on his own opinion for like 7 minutes, and then they cut to an ad break. And it's like, news just isn't really good anymore. I don't know. It's not even news. It's nothing but editorialisms at this point. It's not a good kind of a state of news on the mainstream these days anymore. It is rough. I mean, it is really rough.
Don't you like how all the reporters, I don't know if they go to reporter school to learn the exact same methods and stuff like that, but anytime someone is interviewing a subject that they bring onto their channel or something like that, for example, Wolf Blitzer, they sit there with this very confused look on their face while they're looking at the person they're questioning. Tucker Carlson did it to the extreme. He went to the extreme doing it. He literally had the confused dog face going on when he was talking to somebody, and all of them do it. Across all the channels, they always look very confused every single time.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I think the person who pulls that off the best is Tucker Carlson, because he pulls off the confused dog look. It's like the dog that heard a high pitched sound and going, it's like that look. And so I think he personally pulls it off the best. Everyone else just looks like they're fearful for their lives. They'll ask the question, Matthew. They'll be like, did you actually bomb the Suez Canal? And then they'll move to this face where they're like, please don't kill me. It's not like there be a gun or something. I'll tell you, man, it's a rough world out there in the mainstream news. And also, like Matthew was saying, they don't even talk about news anymore. There's so much going on in the world these days. We cover it here on this channel, and they don't even touch on it anymore. We'll sit there and we'll be like, those Russian and Chinese bombers flying near America today, that's really showing a signal by both of them. Let's see what the mainstream news is saying about it. Nothing. Right now, they are caught up entirely on American politics because it's election time, and I guess they're trying to rake in those ratings so that way they can sell those pitiful ad slots to Chevrolet for the 900th time, so you can see that damn lizard sitting on that snow pile again for the 900th time, or my pillow.
Oh, no.
What are you talking about, a lumpy pillow?
I'm interrupting this commercial to bring you a special TV offer.
Oh my lord. Or let's see, what are the other goofy ads that they have on the news?
You want this vegetable pill? We ground up some vegetables and we put it in this pill.
Yeah, they're superfoods or something like that. It's always have y'all noticed, by the way, that the credit, the kind of ads that the news companies are getting these days to fill the slots are shady? Have y'all noticed that they went from being really good ads back in 10 years ago to now they're really shady and crappy today? And that's because the ratings are going down. The ratings are staying a little bit high, but the ratings are still dropping off enough, at least behind the scenes when they're trying to advertise these ad spaces to possible advertisers, that no one really wants to get the slots anymore because they're not worth the amount of money that these companies are charging. And that's why you're seeing all of these C-list companies, these D-list companies, with the supplements people and stuff, showing up on the mainstream news ads because no one else is going to buy the slot anymore because there's no point. There's better places to go, better places to get sponsors or ad slots because literally anyone's doing better than the mainstream news at this point. So I hope that does address that well. Let's see. So You're Taking My Life said they've become the indoctrination networks now. Absolutely. That's what they are. Fox News leans one way, CNN leans the other, and then every other news organization is kind of like on a lower peg, but they still go one side or the other. Like, you don't hear real news anymore. Like, you don't hear that kind of
And
stuff.
even and even on their like political points and stuff like that, they don't even have their own original thoughts on that. Like, they're given like party lines from each party, regardless of which one it is. They're given these sheets with like a bunch of facts on them, and they're all told to repeat those facts. They're just they're paid shills, basically. Whatever you want to hear, they're paid to tell you exactly what you want to hear, and they're told by the people that you like in politics what to say, because they know that if you like a certain party, you like this or that. They already know what you want to hear, and they simply repeat it to you. And some people will get really sucked into it. But I think a lot of people here on the stream that watch YouTube for their news and things like that, they're already aware of it, or otherwise they'd be watching cable and they wouldn't think this was worth the crap at all.
News has really fallen downhill since people started to do identity-based marketing. It has really gone downhill since that started about 15 years ago.
It really has. I agree with that 100%.
And so with that, while we agree on that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. So what do we got, Matthew?
I agree to disagree.
Huh?
I'm just joking.
Why?
But anyways.
dude, I hit you with that movie level. I hit you with that movie level. Huh? You're like, nothing.
Huh?
Man, Stephen Wilson said, look at that, man. Before we move on to the next one, Stephen Wilson said, bring back Walter Cronkite. Look, we want to. We really do. Like, we would fill in that slot as long as y'all would allow us. Like, you know, we talked about this a while ago. We talked about, what if we just started to cover all news, including possible political topics, but we covered it in a very objective and neutral way. Not a lot of people were a big fan of that. But if y'all want it, if we ever saw that most of y'all started to move in that direction where y'all would just want news, but it's objective and neutral, like, you know, we'll keep our pro-Western stance. I'm not giving that up ever. But as far as domestic politics or anything went, we would be as objective and neutral as possible. We would like to bring back like a Walter Cronkite sort of a standard to our news reporting, and, you know, introduce some new stuff to it. Like, I would be happy to do that. I would think it would be nice. And also, if we started to succeed, like you know, as a big picture thing, to kind of tell y'all my big picture as a societal kind of an impact with that, if we succeeded in that and this channel really started to explode in popularity and grow, then we would actually start to steal viewers from other people, like mainstream news channels, and they would have to start becoming more objective and neutral themselves to try and continue to stay relevant or stay in the ratings. So by doing that, if we succeeded, we would actually have a pretty big and positive impact on news coverage, not only here on this channel, but across the United States and maybe even on a Western level as a whole. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ben Ite. He puts into 10. And thank you very much, Ben, as always, for that support. He says, I ate some Ukrainian food one time, and I did some shiting. Something that looked like a deck of cards. Thoughts?
Go to a doctor. I don't think that's normal.
Go to the doctor, man.
Yeah, I don't think...
deck of cards, that ain't right.
If something came out and it looks like a deck of cards, that's a little suspicious. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, a very interesting thing to hear. I would go check with the doctor on that. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Man, I thought we were doing good until someone said, this is not a replacement for news. We are the news. This is literally the news. Like, I don't even know what that means.
We're not a replacement at all. Like, I'll be honest with you. We're not a replacement. We are the news now, because like John said in the live chat, he said, how come none of the news channels are even covering the current situation in Ukraine? You're the only news source. Exactly, John. They don't even cover it. It's not even a matter of we disagree with their analysis. They just simply don't cover it. It's that simple. And really, honestly, I think that's why our channel has done so well, is because if the mainstream was covering this, that would actually give us some serious competition, and they don't cover it. And there's no hope in the future that they'll ever cover it. So we have good job security when it comes to that, because the mainstream is never going to pick up on it, because they've got people stuck in a political jailhouse on their channels. But anyways, we've rabbit holed a ton about that. So we're moving on to our next super chat, which goes to John F. He puts in a 5 and says, can't any NATO nation be able to defend themselves without it being a NATO response?
Well, kind of, sort of, but not really. Because with everyone being in the NATO alliance, whenever it deals with anything as far as North Atlantic security, it ends up kind of being viewed as a NATO action because it involves the rest of the alliance. That's why when Poland said, we're going to shoot down Russian drones. America said, no, you're not, because we're a member of NATO, and this is going to be viewed as a NATO-wide action. So really, you can't. Like, it's generally considered a NATO-wide action, even if a single country is operating in their own defense. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to CK Bold, who put in the regular and put in a $5 donation and said, take a live chat question, and we shall, CK Bold. And thank you very much for always putting in the 5. Very, I was about to say religiously, but very routinely. But CK Bold, this live chat question right here, it goes to AF Kaplan. He says, has there been any official statement by the Romanian government regarding the shooting down of Russian drones over the territory?
We have not heard an official statement from the Romanians confirming the shoot down. We've actually heard the opposite. They have stated that they did not engage or shoot down any Shahed 136s near the Danube River area, either inside of Romanian airspace or in Ukrainian airspace. So that's the kind of comment we've gotten so far, and that's what's made it hard to really tie down the story and make it a concrete one, is that we have an official declaration by the Romanian government that they did not conduct those actions, although we have video evidence that is showing the contrary. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. Very good live chat, by the way, and thank you once again for supporting that live chat, CK Bold, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to, let's see here, this one goes to Jaya Turner, who puts in a 5, and it says, pray for my hometown, Missoula. Terrible windstorm knocked out all the utilities, the emergency services, etc., and tons of trees down all over the town, and it's real bad.
I'll bet it is bad because it's in the middle of these mountains, and the mountains actually channel the winds to be incredibly strong over the peaks of the mountains and also through the valleys as well. And this thing is clearly in a valley. I bet you that wind had to have been rough. We deal with rough winds, well, much rougher winds up here in Birmingham than we did back in our hometown of Wetumpka, because Wetumpka is kind of in the lowlands of Alabama, so it's generally flat down there. The only reason there was a hill near Wetumpka is because Wetumpka is actually built near an ancient crater impact site. So the hill that's near Wetumpka is actually the rim of that crater. But beyond that, we didn't have any hills down there, and the winds were fairly moderate. Like, even strong winds were kind of moderate. But now that we've gotten up here, we have truly experienced like strong gale winds, because the valleys and the mountains and stuff really generate that extra wind force because it channels most of it into a single focalized point. But I got to say, that must be fairly rough. Hopefully, they'll be getting their power and infrastructure put back together fairly soon, and I would hope so, because back in Wetumpka, back in the days, sometimes the power would go out, and they go out for days or weeks. Because it would take them forever to get the infrastructure put back together. But still, we will be making sure to send our best wishes and prayers to your hometown, Jaya Turner. And thank you so much for the support and enjoying this channel, helping to keep on running. And thank you for sharing a little bit about what's going on up there in Missoula in Montana. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Uncle Sam's misguided child once again, who puts in a 5. And also, why is Uncle Sam's child misguided? I want to understand what happened. But they said, thank you for the insights.
And thank you so much for lending an ear to my insights. You know, like, sometimes I have an opinion like everyone else. I say my opinions on air sometimes. But, you know, while we've been saying a whole bunch of bravura tonight about we are the news and all that kind of stuff, the reality is that my opinion is as equally worthless and as equally worthwhile as everyone else's. It's just that there's a load of people who listen to me, so I guess it gives it a little bit more leverage, but beyond that, it's an opinion like everyone else's. I gotta thank y'all greatly for listening to my opinions on some things, especially when it comes to Western interests and how we should be promoting them or pursuing them. That is something that I gotta say I'm very grateful and appreciative of, because no one has to listen to my opinion. Y'all don't have to if y'all didn't want to, but nevertheless, y'all do. And I got to thank y'all for that, because I really enjoy getting to share my opinion every once in a while on what I would do in the pursuit of Western interests. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well, Uncle Sam's misguided child. And with that, we are on to the next one. And we know who it's from, Matthew. Hit it, Matthew.
So this one also goes to Uncle Sam's misguided child. They said, like and subscribe, please. And they put in a 2. And of course, please like and subscribe if you like the content. Indeed. And once again, thank you very much, Uncle Sam's child, for that support. And we also have a 2 from LSA Sergeant Figment. Hey! LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
And I gotta say, thank you to both of y'all. Once again, Uncle Sam's Misguided Child and LSC Sergeant Figment, always throwing in the two. And I gotta thank y'all both for wanting folks to subscribe and hit the like button. A lot of people have hit the like button again tonight. 3.2 thousand people have hit the like button. That is an incredibly large number of folks who have, and I gotta thank all of y'all for doing that. And also, I gotta thank y'all all for subscribing so far as well, because we are so close. We are literally 20 away from 242,000 subscribers. We are 8,000 subscribers away from 250,000, a quarter of a million, the magic number. Many of y'all may not know this, but since this channel has started, I've always considered a quarter of a million of subscribers to be the magic number. I don't know what it is in my head, but I've always thought, if we make it to 250,000 subscribers, we really made it. Like, Matthew can tell you, Matthew and my mom were really big into 200,000. 200,000 subscribers, and that'll be crazy. And I've always been one who's been saying a quarter of a million, 250,000, we will have made it as a channel. And it is crazy to see that we are actually starting to creep up on 250,000. We're only 8,000 away at this point. And I got to say a huge thanks to pretty much the 100,000 people who have subscribed to the channel since the beginning of this year. That is absolutely crazy growth, and I gotta say that it's wonderful to have all of y'all here and enjoying this channel so much. And so thank you all so much once again for subscribing and hitting the like button. It's incredibly kind of y'all. And with that, it's time for us to move on into some live chat questions, because that was our last two super chats tonight. Huge shout out once again to Uncle Sam's Misguided Child and LSA Sergeant Figment for the support and rounding out our super chat segment. And now we're going to be moving on into the Morse code message and a couple of live chats before we round out tonight's stream. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so tonight the Morse code decoders were Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. The Morse for tonight says on the LSA Signal Corps, things are rapidly escalating between the East and NATO, and we need to be ready for anything. LLT, LSA.
And that is the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message, and I do feel like that is a very accurate Morse code message, not only in its message, but also in how y'all deciphered it. I gotta congratulate y'all again for doing that. That's absolutely incredible, and I gotta say, it's really something to see that y'all have gotten it correct on the 883rd day. We're only 17 days away from the 900th day of the war, and y'all are still getting that right time and time again. Pretty cool. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And also, we have one more super chat from Neil Vizanant at Channel Legend. Been around forever. And he threw in a 5. And he said, you should keep track of the super chats you like but can't say, and make a bit for if you ever do a live event. That would be pretty interesting, Neil. But some of them are so spicy, I really wouldn't want to read them in front of an entire crowd of people at a live event. But you know, something that's even cooler, Neil, is that I told Matthew a long time ago, back when we were like 100,000 subscribers, I said, we might start to do public events where we, you know, advertise them and we get to meet with fans and folks and get to talk to all of y'all on a stage. You know, maybe like do a speech or something like that to all of y'all. Once we hit maybe 300,000 subscribers or something. Matthew's not really a big fan of that because there's some security risks involved with that, and I would have to agree there are some security risks involved. We would probably have to mobilize a Lee Spring Army Guard Corps if we did something like that to have some security. But beyond that, it would
just get Secret Service to come in clutch.
Matthew, did you see like the stairway up that theater right there? That's a little too sloped for a Secret Service member. They can't be there. Send them outside. Like, send them outside of the theater. I'm sure they'll be fine out there. But beyond that, we would want to. I don't know if we would want to do something like that, but I would like to do something like that eventually in the future. I don't know when. And Matthew and me kind of have to talk about that because there are some security concerns that we would have to iron out beforehand. But if we could do that, and we could get to meet loads of y'all in person and get to talk to y'all in a crowd or in like a person-to-person setting, I think that'd be incredibly cool. Because we owe y'all everything, and so many of y'all would love to get to talk to us and speak to us one-on-one, or take a picture with us or something like that. And I would love to be able to do that with all of y'all. That's so weird to think about, Matthew, because I remember back in the day, and maybe this person was watching right now, back when we had a Discord server. We're never getting one again, by the way. I just want to put that out there. But back when we had a Discord server, we were vetting new moderators, and so I was knowing that the vetting process was going on, and I wanted to drop in and kind of get to meet a couple of the people and talk to them in the Discord call. So I popped into one of the calls, and the person in the call, like I said, hey, how are you doing? And they went, oh my God, it's the Enforcer. No freaking way. Oh my God. Wow, this is so cool. And I was like, dang. I was like, okay, I'm just a person. Like, I was like, all right, that's crazy. But it was so cool to know that someone's day was made just by getting to, hop in a call and talk to them a little bit. I just thought that was incredibly cool. And if I could do that for a whole bunch of other folks, just make their day by getting to talk to them, maybe take a picture with them, that would be incredibly cool. I think that'd be nice. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. At least the best I can about maybe doing a fan thing in the future. And with that, we are on to the fourth to last question of the night.
All right, and this one right here goes to, let's see here. This one goes to Ricky Chaos. He says, I did not know that fighters flew anti-radiation missions, and is that just their ability to keep radiation off of their crew, or do they perform certain tasks?
F-16s, if you're talking about F-16s in general, most Western aircraft are geared up pretty much by default at this point to be able to conduct SEAD missions. Back in the day, we used to have specialized aircraft like the F-4 Wild Weasel to be able to conduct those kinds of anti-radiation missions, but nowadays, that's pretty much been integrated technologically into every single aircraft. So, yes, an F-16 can conduct an anti-radiation mission with SEADs. Well, not with SEADs. It's with AGM-88 HARMs, which are anti-radiation missiles. And as far as that goes, it's just kind of one of the missions that it can conduct, because the F-16 is a multi-role, meaning that it can do multiple different things on the same plane. So you can make an F-16 into a light bomber, kind of like an Su-34, or it could be a dogfighter, like a MiG-29, or it could be an anti-radiation aircraft, which the Russians really don't have a comparable equivalent to. So it really can just do any kind of a task it needs, depending on the situation unfolding on the ground. I guess that's maybe the best way I can explain it, although that's kind of a little generic. It gets really complicated beyond that, though. But still, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Brownie Mix Bro, who says, when will Russia/Putin understand that carrying on any further will just progress EU members to help Ukraine further? Maybe never? And when is there a timeline?
Well, let's see. When will Russia/Putin understand that carrying on to help Ukraine? Let's see. I'll be honest with you, Mandy. I don't think I'm understanding that question for some reason. Can you translate that for me?
Let's see. When will Russia/Putin understand that carrying on any further will just progress EU members? So Putin, through his aggression, is basically when Putin escalates further and further and further, gets things worse in Ukraine, that causes EU members to want to send more support to Ukraine. And will Putin ever understand that he's actually working against his own will?
I don't think he will, because he keeps on doing actions that are fairly stupid and keep on driving the West further closer to Ukraine. But at the same time, he's also doing, at the same time, whenever we do the tit for tat with him, we're also driving countries like North Korea closer to Russia. So it's kind of just polarizing the world in a sense. But I don't think Putin understands that. And I also don't think that he understands that in this polarization, the Russians still aren't gaining any powerful or large friends for the most part. Maybe the Chinese, it's actually looking like the Chinese may be pulling the Russians into their fold, which would be the only time they would get a major game changer of a nation joining them. Really, they would be joining China. But beyond that, I don't really think he's understanding that all too well, at least in the big picture. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this is actually a super chat from Neil Vizanon, who puts in a 5. It says, misunderstanding. Anti-radiation missions do not mean missions against nuclear weapons.
Yes, that is true. Anti-radiation, a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of different things emit radiation. Radars being one of them. They emit a special kind of radiation. And let me see if I can find out what radiation do radars emit. Let's see here. Let's see. They generate EMFs that are called RF fields. Let's see. Is radar radiation harmful? Let's see. Radar radiation. I'm trying to see here. Tools and online. Let's see. Dang, I'm just trying to find an answer. Like, what kind of... So apparently military radars may have ionizing radiation. I'm trying to find out quickly what it is, because all I know, like, I don't know the specific kind of radiation or anything. All I know is that radar emits some form of a radiation that can be picked up by a sensor, well, really the radar on the F-16 or a specialized sensor built into the F-16, which then locks onto that radiation signal of a special variety, which apparently may be ionizing radiation.
So the radar emits EM radiation, I believe, electromagnetic. It doesn't release like gamma or anything like that. That's a little bit different.
Like they don't have a piece of uranium up there that they're blasting. They like send off a whole bunch of waves like that. So it's not like nuclear radiation per se, but it is a form of radiation. And so the missile targets that. Well, the F-16 actually picks it up, which helps the missile to target it, and then they fire the missile, but kind of like a AIM-120, which is a active homing radar missile, meaning that the aircraft it's launched off of has a lock on its target, and then the missile's fired, and then the missile has its own radar that also locks onto the target and tracks the target. The AGM-88 HARMs, the anti-radiation missiles, operate off of a very similar premise, where the aircraft initially picks up the radiation signature, and then they fire the anti-radiation missile, and then the anti-radiation missile has a sensor of its own that picks up that that electromagnetic radiation on its own, and then it continues to target it and destroy the source. So yes, that is correct. It is not targeting any kind of a nuclear weapon. It's a special kind of radiation, electromagnetic waves, that is targeting off of a radar. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much for the support, Neil Visnon. And we actually have one more super chat from Bob Anon, who threw in a 3 Australian. Hey! And Bob Anon said, Russian mass casualty event, Rostov radiation. We considered that earlier, and we did talk about that, but we didn't rule it out completely, but we largely ruled it out because most of those trauma centers and field hospitals will most likely be set up south of Volgodonsk, and we're not seeing that. They're being set up across the entirety of Western Russia, which would suggest possibly an idea of starting a conventional war or something along those lines. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the second. Also, thank you for the support once again, Bob Anon. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
So this one goes to AF Kaplan. He says, what will it take for NATO to step up when it comes to drones crossing into NATO territory? And will NATO citizens have to be injured or killed? And is that what it's going to take?
Yes, it most likely would take NATO citizens being injured or killed, because it seems as though NATO's current premise, or really America's current premise, if no one's harmed, there's no harm done. That seems to be kind of the idea we're working off of so far. I think that's a stupid idea, but nevertheless, it's the one we're kind of working off of. So yes, someone will have to get injured or killed probably for NATO to really make a change to our very non-escalatory, somewhat appeasement level stance to Russian drone attacks possibly hitting NATO territory. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you for an interesting question right there. And with also, Bootlegger said, if you call it radar, it would help eliminate confusion. It would, but I want to call it by its actual name, so that way y'all don't call them anti-radar missiles, because they are called anti-radiation anti-radiation missiles, not missiles. Missile, man, we got that missile up here. But this is what they are. This is a this is not. Well, no, that is an AGM-88 harm. The nose cone's the same, but. Here's another one. This is an alarm under the wing of the Royal Air Force Panavia Tornado, but they're actually called anti-radiation missiles. My God, what the hell? But anyways, they pick up radio
Michelin stars.
Yeah, they pick up enemy Michelin stars and they destroy them. But that's what they're called. So yes, it would be easier to say anti-radar missiles, but they're actually anti-radiation missiles by specific naming convention. And so while I keep screwing that up over and over, like I don't know what's up with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And this one goes to Anonymous Mouse, who says, are the Russian troops in occupied Moldova large enough that Romania/NATO should be concerned if a full-scale war breaks out between NATO and Russia?
Probably not, because they're sandwiched in Moldova and then they're surrounded by Ukraine. And it's such a small, well, it's a big force actually, but it's generally small in terms of its supply and available combat ability that they'd pretty much be stuck in Moldova. If a war started, they are literally in a pocket immediately. They're pretty much surrounded. There's no way out for them. And so they would have to try and conduct a breakout back to the Russian lines if they ever stood a chance. So instead of actually breaking out and advancing deeper into NATO with no supply lines and really no way logistically to support themselves if they moved, they probably would make the last-ditch attempt to try and run for the Dnieper River and jump across. Kind of figuratively in a way, jump across. They'd actually require barges and ferries and all that kind of stuff to move across. But that's probably what they would end up doing. So I wouldn't consider them that big of a risk. Maybe a risk if they ended up trying to become some sort of a semi-guerrilla force. Now, that would be a bit of a risk. But we would assume that if they tried to remain within a conventional aspect, they would probably try and retreat back to Russian-controlled territory and then rejoin a main force. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion, and at least in my understanding. But I do have to say, huge thanks to every single one of y'all for watching tonight. We've had 75,000 people watch the stream since it started. And tonight, YouTube said our peak was a shocking 7,000 live viewers, and YouTube is still underreporting that number, so we know it was way higher than that. But we got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching and enjoying the stream. If y'all did enjoy, please make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe. We are very happy when folks do that. And we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, once again, thank you all for another great stream. Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava. We'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next nightly war news stream, and also maybe midday tomorrow as well for a short war summary if there's enough news to cover, which it seems like these days there's no shortage of news to cover. But with that, we'll see you all tomorrow. Get some rest, and good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.